Good morning, traders. Are you guys seeing CPI right now? Look at that, guys. Looks like we got a light number. What is this going to do? I'll tell you one thing, though. I think today is going to be one of those curveball types of days where the light number is making the positive reaction right now on the indices, but will that hold? Those are all things I have questions about because really this tells me more and more that Jerome Powell is not cutting anytime soon. And that is not good things, at least I think, for the market. Let's take a look at what's going on here. Right now, we got CPI to come in. You guys can see it really quickly. We'll go over it. We'll just take a look here from the numbers, right? You guys can see the numbers right there. We can go through each one, right? Month over month, we got a 0.2 versus a 0.3 estimate prior. Sorry about that, guys. This new setup is StreamYard. You're killing me. You're killing me. So February here at 0.2 versus 0.3 estimate prior being 0.5. That was the spike that we saw on the last month. Here we're seeing a negative in the core CPI, a 0.2 versus a 0.3. So coming down to 0.1. Expected was a 0.4, right? And so, hey, there you guys have it. Year over year outlook, the CPI at 2.8 versus a 2.9 estimate, prior being 3%, right? So it's still down a 0.1 and pretty much all around the board. Let's see the reaction off of this. You guys can see it with some stocks. And man, I'm sorry, guys. I'm over here talking about the market, not even looking at my trade, and my trade is dropping fast here. I got to go ahead and get out of Intel here in just a second here. Let me see what happens here. If it gets back through the 65s, gets back through there it is. There's the 63s already showing up here, guys. I'm going to go ahead and get out here, take a hit in the pre-market. I was trying to trade here Intel, and man, is it dropping fast there. It went down there to the 2050s there as I started the show, and we weren't looking too bad. But let's see if this can bounce a little bit, and I can get out for a little bit less of a hit here. But definitely something that I was watching. I was looking to see if Intel was going to make the move. The SPY is coming right back down, so I'm a little bit concerned that we're going to get further downside action to come in here. We're going to have to wait and find out, traders. All right, guys, Intel's the one that I was trading there, but SPY getting a little bounce there. We'll see if it's able to hold. You can see it's coming right back down. Yes, it did make a spike, but like I mentioned, is this a positive or negative? I think you could take bets on this for sure, but it's going to be hard to trade. Is it just a sell the rip, or is it a buy the dip moment? Well, that's what you need to be considering right now, and this is why you need to be having the mentality before the action happens on what you're looking to see in the markets, right? We'll see what happens here. Can we go ahead and continue making some gains? Definitely struggling right now with Intel. It's trying to get back above the 2070s. It cannot do it just now. There's a little bit of a pipe. There's a little bit of a spike there. That's going to help a little bit back towards the 75s. So continuing to watch it. Now I'll just watch it off that 2060 to see if it can hold that and start to get back through the 2070s and get back through 21. And I'm watching Intel, guys. We'll talk a little bit more about this on my playbook and sunrise action. But like always, the sunrise is all about like kind of showing you why stocks are moving. There's some news with Intel today that I think is important to watch. We'll see the reaction. Nvidia did a better reaction, I think, off the number. I think this was one that you could have maybe looked to take a shot on because any number near the in line, and I felt like Nvidia would be that one to really get things started. TSM is another one to keep an eye out for. Right now, it's at 173.30, 173.50s. I'd be watching to see if this can get past the 174.50s towards the gates. It has a nice looking bottoming. Of course, this is going to run also with NVIDIA. It's definitely oversold. Is this the time, guys? The MACD tells me no, but it's something to watch for to see if we can get things going. All right, we'll take a look at different stocks out there. And you guys in the chat joining in or tuning in on X, you guys smash the like right now. Let me know what's your top watch on the day, and we'll talk a little bit more about it here. Intel starting to come back into the 2080s here. I'm watching it, guys, because I might just cut the position. Let's talk a little bit about that, and you guys can see the position right here. Like always, we give you guys the full transparency here. That's what I'm all about, guys. Always showing you guys completely what I'm doing, not hiding anything. This is where the show differentiates itself from other shows, guys. So here we go. We're going back to the 2088 level here. So what I'm going to do is actually downsize here because it just makes sense, right? So I'm going to actually lower my sizing here just to cut some of the size to see if I can at least get back to break even. And right there, it's already doing it. Let's go ahead and sell some here. Boom. All right, guys. So I sold 300 shares there just to limit the risk here, right? I could have sold it all, but let's see if it gets back through that 21. We came back really fast to that 21. Don't really want to see us crack too far down through that 2080s here, and just trying to make sure that I maintain a nice kind of start to the day, right? So you guys saw me cut down the size there from 500 to 200 shares, really looking to see if it can get back above the 21. So we did get a little bit of a pullback there on Intel. Let's see if this can really start to get going. This is what I'm looking to trade. We'll take a look at the market to see what else is kind of making a move off of this. We can take a look to see also between kind of the 15 minutes and what's happening here. Where are we seeing the change, right? Right now, we did see a spike in oil a little bit earlier. I'm going to be watching gold to see what happens there. The SPY is kind of trying to hang on here. I think it's something definitely to watch here. Will the SPY make the up move here? It's something to watch. I think it could even make the up move towards the bell and then come down. That's where it's really, really difficult. I don't think it's just going to be clear skies today. So we'll see what happens here. Back and forth action. And it might just take you to get out of a position and then look to get back in, because I know a lot of a lot of traders are positioned in this morning. And with that being said, that's a good and bad thing, because the truth is that if we could get the wash on those traders and then finally see some further downside. I'm actually looking really closely at this Intel and thinking, hey, anything back in the 2070s, I got to go ahead and get out. So I'm getting ready to get out if I need to and cut this, keep the kind of the morning risk small, and then look to get bigger during the show. And we'll see what happens. The Q's made a bigger spike, I feel like, and it kind of held, but it's not holding anymore. It's on the 9 EMA, starting to reject it. So I think this is something to watch for. The biggest concern for me off of this is more, what does this do to the CME Fed tool, right? Because what are we going to do? Are we going to cut or are we not going to cut? So it usually takes about 5 to 7 minutes to at least even show up there. Let's see if the data is in already. And yeah, it's in 7:31. So I'll show you guys the data right now. I take a look at this, but through the CME Fed Watch tool, you guys can take a look at that also. Just research it or put it in Google. You'll find it, guys. Just to put in perspective here, I might cut this Intel, and it's a lot based on this mentality. We were starting to actually see a potential rate cut, but now it's showing me 97% chance of no rate cut. Why is this happening? Well, this is a big part. This actually had gone to 11 at some point in the last week, and this is what I want to be keeping an eye on, because I feel like if we really want the market to come back, we're going to start needing rates to come down. And that's not good news, at least. But I think that's why you're also seeing a different reaction right now, where it's not just buy, because this says that the rates are staying longer, and that is not good news for the market. We'll see what happens there, guys. Can we get a continued lift? I'm watching it right now. You guys will be able to watch me cut this position probably right now in just a second. It's at 2080s. Don't want to get back towards the 2070s. Looking for a cut back towards the 21. Could have taken it all out there, but gave myself a shot here, risking about totals about $60. That's not too bad this morning. We'll see what happens. 2080s just barely hanging on here. Could cut any moment. SPY hanging on there. Let's take a look at gold. I love gold. Will this continue to uplift? I think this is definitely something to watch for a breakout, especially GOLD. I feel like AU has already made its move. It's pretty high and it could go higher, but it's kind of like a stair step back approach. I'd be watching to see if we finally start to get this move from this Barrett gold, start to get higher on the daily, going towards the 19 and above. Wouldn't be a bad watch. Watching AMD hold on a little bit there. Let's see how NVIDIA is doing. Not looking too bad in some areas. I'm going to go ahead and cut this Intel. It's just too much, guys. There's no reason for me to stay in it right now. I can get back in it during the open. Trying to cut it out right now at the 77. The spread got a little wider there. There you go. Got cut out there at the 79 spot. So took the hit there. I'm all out of Intel. Took a little bit of a hit there, about $74 to be exact. And you guys can see the position going out. I always show you guys it all. We'll just keep it going, guys. And Intel is definitely still on the radar. It's just more, I'm not going to hold if the SPY can't hold. And the SPY is right there. So it could still make the move, guys. I just think it's smart for me to get out right now and look to see what happens off of the reaction on the next move, right? The next move is going to be the important one, where if it holds, yeah, I can start taking some shots. We'll see what happens out there. AMD not looking too bad. Also, look at the 99 recovery that it just did. It went sideways, sideways, sideways. The rule of three, up one, down one, up two, down two, up three, down three. Looks really good there. Now could take off towards 100. This is not looking bad, even in the pre-market right now. So I would have to take a risk off of probably the 99, maybe to 100 shares, looking for the push there. It really doesn't look bad here. AMD started to lift there towards 99.46 and looking good here. That's going to give us some semiconductor outlook that could be a positive here. So stocks hell. You guys can see that one at the 1850s. Can this one rise and get towards the 1875 and higher? Not a bad looking trade here, a setup. Now the only question is, do you believe the rallies here? That's what you need to be asking yourself. And I don't know if it is or not. I'll be honest. For me, I'm a little back and forth on it this morning. And I think that a lot of traders will be. So like always, traders, watch out, because as soon as I get out of it, there's Intel starting to come back there. It doesn't look bad. I'll be watching it through the 21. And back to the 21, it starts looking better. We'll leave it alone for right now. NVDL is one of the ones that I traded yesterday. That's doing really well too. NVIDIA holding on. Apple is one that I need to see get strong. If Apple can get strong, yeah, I'll start believing in this rally a little bit more. We'll see what happens. I think it could be a day where you at least get a bounce back, right? The bounce back, they're using the data to give you that bounce back look. Now the only question is, can it hang on? One stock that's on my radar is, of course, watching the energy sector. And sorry about being a little bit tired today, guys. You guys might see me a little bit yawning. Hey, I got a little bit of coffee, long night. Hey, let's keep it going, guys. Energy right now hanging on a little bit of a pullback. We'll see what happens with energy. Is it time for oil to spike, or is it time for the market to continue leaking? Of course, CPI report coming in. Is it reversal day or more red? You guys in the chat, let me know. What do you guys think? Is it a reversal day or more red? Even right now, you're getting an advantage because the market is kind of green, right? Well, is that going to be able to hang on? I don't know, man. I don't know. Intel 1 hour, is that 1 hour is bearish or 11 hours is bearish? I didn't get to see that, Eric. Maybe I just read it wrong. You're seeing that hourly as bearish there. The big thing is the news with Intel, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. Need Trump to stop the massacre for the market to come back down. We'll see what happens. Newest member. Hey, it's good to see you out there, Eric. And one thing that you'll see me do all the time is take a look into sectors and industries. I think that's the most important thing. Like always, it's not about a stock. It's about a sector and an industry. If we can get that industry to go higher, sector to go higher, there's plenty of names to make money in. All right, Cliff, we'll see what happens. Of course, CPI came in. TRNR. Steph, got that on the radar? I've been watching the small cap game this morning, and Steph, you might be able to tell me also, but I did not see a single thing I liked this morning. And trust me, you know I want to trade, but I couldn't find anything. And so that's important to see there. Qs and SPY starting to rise here. It's time to maybe take some other bets on. We'll see what happens here. VXX is another one that I could bet on the downside of things, guys, and it's starting to look a lot better. This morning, I was thinking about betting on this as being a little bit of a collapse for the VIX, and this happens all the time, guys, where the VIX takes a shot up. It comes multiple times towards hourlies and then starts to reject them, right? So we could see that yesterday we were getting up there towards the high. It was trying to make a breakout above 60. And look, you're already back to 54. So one thing's for certain is I think it's a little too fast. So I'll be looking for any pops to maybe get short on the VXX, but it's already coming down here with the report. They did a little spike to 54. We'll see if it takes out that 54 in the pre-market. All right, guys, let's keep it going. And Steph's saying that she agrees on the small cap, kind of a flat morning of scalping penny stocks. Yeah, there wasn't much there, even on the scanners. I brought it up, but I was like, man, there's nothing there. I'm just glad that today was one of those days that I didn't start the day like at like 4 or 5 in the morning, because it would have just got me like completely destroyed, because I'm just there waiting and waiting and waiting. I'll tell you one thing, when you're waiting, it's better to look for a catalyst than to be trading a lot of the times, because you just get itchy. AMD right back towards the high there. We talked about the setup there on AMD. Look at the setup now, taking off there, guys. And I talk about this setup all the time, which is my rule of 3. And another thing that helps you here is the MACD crossover right at the spot, right at the spot we want to see it. So this is looking pretty, guys. Hey, maybe I should have just taken that buy when I saw it. I could see the setup there, and this was a way better setup than even the Intel. So what I want to see, guys, is a lot of bottoming on this, right? And so I talk about this all the time, guys. What are you looking to see, right? And what are you looking to kind of catch? So a lot of times I'm looking for those 3 attempts towards the bottom and then looking to see if they can get towards the top, right? So 1 attempt towards the resistance. We start getting a second, right? Second up, right? We get this third up, right? And then you get the third up right here. You pull back to that support right here on the circles, and that's exactly what you want to be seeing. So what is that doing? That's accumulating off the support and looking to see what? Looking to see that it holds there and then makes the volume move higher. That's exactly what you get here. Higher volume, lower, 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 into the rip, higher volume, and now you're getting some profit taking near the high. Can't blame them either, because, I mean, it got up there pretty fast, right? Nice little 60 cents really quickly. Not a bad way to take some profits. Look to see if it gets to 100 today. If that happens, it could keep going. Volume is low on those small caps, so keep their eyes on that. That's going to be a little bit of a danger area to be in today. Seeing right now the VIX already dropping there, but the thing about the VIX is that the spread is a little too wide for me. So right now I can't play it. I got to wait for the open market. And we'll be looking around, guys, trying to make some cash today, trying to push it, guys. Let's get after it. You know, I'm not trying to be a little bit of scared money here. Definitely going to take some trades. And another thing to keep in mind is that I have an eval that is due up at the end of the week, right? I can't extend this one any further. So, hey, just got to take some shots, guys. I'm going to be taking some shots today, some bigger ones. We'll see what happens. Today's a day where the market's going to be moving, and you got to be willing to take some trades. Another thing to mention, guys, and I want to tell you guys that we'll talk a little bit about it. Let's go to the Sunrise report. We'll talk about some different stocks that are moving. The playbook today is, I'll be honest, it's all about CPI. Intel's on the playbook, but it's going to depend on what happens here, right? What continues to happen in the market. It's so important. I have different plays for the way that the market moves, if it's bullish or bearish. And I think that's the important thing, is having multiple style of plays that you can get after. All right, let's get into this morning Sunrise report. We'll talk about Intel. And I do want to talk about a whale action in Ethereum. I think this is something to watch, because I've been seeing ETHU really load up on some volume, and it's something that I want to keep an eye out for. All right, guys, let's get to it. Let's go to the Sunrise report and see what's out there this morning. All right, of course, CPI coming in, and we were expecting an increase, but at a 0.3, and it came in at a 0.2, 2.9% year over year headline inflation coming in a little bit light. So a key test for the Fed's next move as inflation fears resurface. But there it is, guys, taming those inflation concerns, at least not, I mean, it went down 0.1, right? But at least not giving a spike. So that tells me more and more rate cuts could be held off. And that is a negative, I think, in the long run for the market. Let's take a look at Intel here. Of course, I talked about it, how the news was out there. Let's talk about the news that I caught. TSMC is proposing a kind of a a venture, right? A partnership with NVIDIA, right? And AMD, Broadcom, and possibly Qualcomm to operate Intel's U.S. factories. TMMC wouldn't own more than 50%, but would manage Intel's foundry division. Trump administration must approve the deal. Very important there that Trump must approve this deal. And full foreign ownership is off the table. Very important there. So TSMC cannot buy the Intel, but it can go ahead and do this deal to try to help create a little bit stronger demand, right? And give them some more pretty much supply help, right? Intel plunged 56% year over year, posting an 18.8 billion net loss in 2024. TSM's AI fuel boom continues as that is up 39.2% revenue surge in early 2025. $100 billion investment in the U.S. expansion. Meta is now working with TSMC on an in-house AI chip to cut reliance on NVIDIA. So these are companies that I would definitely focus on. Is maybe the company to have now just TSM? Because I don't think that we're going to get a China invasion in Taiwan. I just don't see it right now. So I'm going to keep watching this. I think this is definitely something to watch and something on the radar. So TSM could actually be the better play, right? And look at the action on TSM this morning. Really nice action. A rule of three, breakout to the upside. So I like this, guys. Keep it on the radar. Steel tariffs are back in play as Trump reinstated the 25% global tariffs on U.S. steel, and they come into play today. So nuts, bolts, bulldozer blades, soda cans, all those types of things are going to be seeing increases. So today I'm watching two plays, right? I'm watching X and I'm watching FCX. Yesterday I was watching X and it made a really nice trade. I wasn't able to capitalize on that, but man, it was a really nice one. I just got cut out right before the move. And a lot of this was, I wasn't giving it much risk, but look at the move yesterday. Nice pullback off of that right back to the highs. Let's see if it can continue the strength today and keep pushing. Another one that I'd be watching is FCX, right? So now you're talking into kind of your copper play. And aluminum is still definitely something that I'd watch, but there's a lot to look in here, guys. I'm watching FCX. I'm watching some materials. I'm watching gold. I'm watching aluminum plays also. That's not a bad way to look at this. I mean, you got to just continue to watch to see what happens here. Of course, we can take a look at different action during the open. We'll see what happens there. Groupon had some good action this morning. I don't know if you were watching Groupon or use Groupon. It's always about a quarter. It's important to know the quarters in this one because if you look at the quarters, sometimes they're going to do well, sometimes they're going to do bad, right? So they usually do good in the first quarter. And a lot of that is kind of the money they make from December and January. So they smashed revenue guidance, forecasting of 493 million to 500 million versus an estimate of 491.5. So good numbers there on Groupon and definitely pushing forward. I just be careful with the seasonality effect that happens in Groupon. But if you take a look at that, that's a pretty strong weekly candle. I'd take a look at it to see if it could really start to push higher. We'll see what happens there. Casey's is another one that I wanted to talk about. And I got to talk to my man, Michael, about this one because I had no idea about Casey's a little while back. And I've been watching this stock make a huge move for a while, man. This thing has just been on a slow grind uptrend. And look at the EPS. I mean, it went from over here being in the 60s to maybe you got a $2 there, but now going into like the $4. So big move there. We'll see if it's able to hold on, pull back to 390s. Makes sense to maybe recover 400. We'll see what happens. This one took a little bit of a nice little push there to 390s. Can it get to 400 today? We'll keep an eye on it. EPS at 233 versus $1.96. Revenues at 3.9 versus a 3.73 billion expected. All good things here at Casey's. I mean, maybe it's the tariffs that could be throwing a wrench in this. We'll find out. All right. Sorry about that, guys. Let's keep it going. Geopolitical update, of course, with the U.S. and Ukraine. As the U.S. resumes military aid to Ukraine, after they agreed to a 30-day ceasefire proposal with Russia. So intelligence sharing also restored here, and some backing, of course, because we took that off. And we pretty much told them, hey, we're not giving you money unless you agree to this. So, hey, that's how it happens, guys. Of course, the big questions for today: how will CPI hold on here as it did come in light? Are we in for some conversation where maybe good news is bad news here? I don't know, man. We'll talk about that with, of course, Michael Noss coming up, guys. Let's go ahead. Let's kick the show off. Let's hit that countdown. We got a lot to take a look at today. It's going to be a heavy, heavy trading day. And I can tell right now, they're holding on. Can the Bulls hold on? Find out during the show. And hit that like button. Let's go. Let's go. It's TTP Live. Hugo wants 200, baby. You ready to get back to the trading action?
You aim, you shoot, and make money.
It's going to be a great day. You guys know where you're at. What's up? What's up? Them tears choke me up too, says Cliff. I can't blame him. Can't blame him. Can't blame myself, man. It's just a little choked up there. But let's bring up Michael Noss. How we doing this morning? Is the CPI catch you choked up this morning?
CPI caught me awesome. I mentioned yesterday I was buying things all yesterday, right? So many things came through my swing trading system.
I'm sure you were itching though when that 8:30, you were like 8:29. Let's see what happens here.
Wasn't even at my screen. It's one of those, right? The beauty being a systematic trader and a swing trader is I'm holding these things till Monday. Kind of hell or high water. So it's one of those where I put in the trades, I put out the stop loss, right? I put it in Interactive Brokers. You can even set an exit time. So I set my exit time, and
I love
done
it.
with them now. But
love it. Yeah,
I certainly was pleasantly surprised to see a nice rip there.
Yeah, nice rip. Now I think we got to question if it holds, right? I think it was a nice rip. We did pull back a little bit. I'm seeing key stocks at least hold up this morning. We'll talk a little bit more about those, right? We'll take a look at some of the charts. If you can, whenever you get a chance, go ahead and hit the share.
Oh, yes.
But yeah, looking into the action, there's only one question for me, right? And I think it's a big, important question, right? Is good news bad news here in this sense where good news, yeah, inflation came down 0.1. But bad news for me is that means Jerome's not cutting. So those are those questions.
Would it be more of a chance that he's going to cut? If inflation went up, there'd be less of a chance that he's going to cut.
I think the opposite here, though, because I think that one of the things that I'm thinking about is that I think that if inflation went skyrocketing higher, of course, that'd be a little bit of a different conversation. But what I wanted to see was pressure on the market for downside, because I think that's the only thing that could eventually break Jerome Powell is the pressure to the downside here. And I think it's all talk, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we'll have to wait to hear from Jerome, but he already said that he wouldn't, that at least from what he saw, he wouldn't be cutting. We all know he gets the number a little bit early. But another thing to mention, I didn't get a chance to talk about it. I threw it up on my Twitter. There's a big whale in Ethereum that put a huge bet on before the CPI report. So some people were speculating in the kind of the Reddit, the streets, as I like to call it, on Twitter. They were speculating that someone knew the CPI number was going to be a little light today. That person's making a hell of a lot of money this morning, up a couple $1 million. The best part, 50 times leverage. He went after that to get that much positioned. That face says it all. I wish I could snapshot that face.
Yeah.
Michael's like,
those, right? It's like we talked about yesterday. Unless you know who the guy is and what the size of his account is, it could be, that was a fun weekend bet for him, right? Like it
was a good one. It was a good one. But that's the cool part of crypto, right? We could track the wallets. That's how people knew that the bets existed. This is where I think there needs to be a change in the financial system, right?
A lot of people,
so that we can track that, right? At least just find that's a whole other ball game. We'll bring on some guy maybe from market structure conversation. But I think it's something to think about in the long run. It's just interesting for sure.
There's a lot of systems, a lot of algos. I actually built some for some trading firms that do just that. They record the on exchange wallets and they look for if whales are moving money to exchanges. That's probably to sell, right? You're not going to put hundreds of millions of dollars on exchanges to keep it there. And same thing, if they're pulling the money off the exchange, it means they're not selling for a bit, right? This is lots of thinking and guessing. That's what we do in the markets. If you know something for sure, certainly make sure you share with us. But yeah, this is what
like I always say, man, if you know something, please let me know, because we all want the Lamborghinis, man. The truth is the Lamborghinis don't make themselves. And it just is what it is. And I try my best not to ever think like you know something, because in the market will teach you that really quickly. The moment you think you know something, that's when it doesn't. That's when all hell breaks loose and it does its own work.
The one way to spot, just for the chat, to spot a fake trader is someone who speaks in absolutes, right? The market will go up, the market will go down, the market nobody knows, right? So if you're saying that or you're thinking that, then
my favorite song, one of my favorite songs, Jimi Hendrix, Who Knows?
Right? But
what does he say? Nobody knows, man.
So fade the guy who says he knows, because he certainly doesn't, right? Unless you got some insider information, and then tell me on the down low, not on a public chat, because that's the only people that know things, is people that But so just looking at the market again, it's exactly like we talked about yesterday. There was a bounce coming in at some point, just technically has to at some point, right? When you get oversold like this, again, nobody knows when that bounce was going to happen. For sure, there's bets to be taken, all that kind of stuff, but no one knows when. So, and then as we talked about, there's kind of two scenarios to watch now, right? One is, do we bounce and then fail? Well, then that is the first sign of a downtrend, and that may sound weird to people who are not technicians, but this is not a downtrend. This is a pullback, right? The market was up and then it just moved down pretty much in a straight line. That's a pullback. Now, what would make this a downtrend is a couple days of a bounce or some sort of consolidation and then a break of this low. Now we're talking downtrend. And you see a lot of it. It didn't really happen here, right? When you had bounces, right, they didn't really follow through to the downside. They were bought back up. And then, right, same through here. You had, right, up moves and there was absolutely no follow through to the downside. So same with here, right? Up moves and then no follow through to the downside. So that would be the first change in character of the market, is that if we get this bounce, and this bounce lasts for a couple days or something meaningful to show that the bulls really, they tried, right? And if they fail, then kind of all bets are off, right? The bullish scenario is a bounce, a pullback that makes a higher low and then a move higher. So those are the two scenarios that I'm kind of watching for, right? So we're at a pretty pivotal point, but we're not going to know this probably till next week. So it's one of those, when we're talking day trading, I'm buying this bounce for short-term trading, my short-term swings. I'm buying this. I'm already bought this bounce yesterday. I'm taking the bet that we won't fail immediately and sell off. That's the only kind of bet that I'm taking right now. But those are the two scenarios, right? We either bounce and then we fail miserably. And that to me is the most bearish thing, right? This isn't really bearish to me. This is just a sell-off, right? But a bounce, a higher low set in, and then a move higher, that's my bull scenario. So the beauty of it is we're finally getting a little bit of a relief bounce, again, assuming we close higher today. And then this is what, again, this is what technicians, this is what real traders do, because we don't know. So we're creating these scenarios. And then the beauty of by creating these scenarios is we're kind of a bystander. We watch the market. And if and when one of these things occurs, we have a plan. Right? If we bounce and we break down to new lows, I am going to flip bearish for at least a little bit. And then if we bounce, we set in a higher low and start to move higher, then I'm going all in long, because it just means this was a pullback and an overall healthy market trend.
Yeah, I think we got to just keep watching. I think today's an important day. How does the market perceive interest rate percentage going from, I think it was like 11% in the early week now to 2%, a chance of a cut. And how does that get perceived? I think that's more important than inflation. I don't think anybody's thinking that inflation's going to like where it was, like, let's say in the pandemic, right? I don't think
No.
anybody is thinking that. There's no one thinking that, right? So for me, the worry is not inflation. There could be small spikes, but I'm not so concerned on inflation. I'm more worried about the consumer breaking and interest rates staying higher. That to me is a more concerning thing, because rents got a little spike there. So the sticky part where you could say that maybe it can go down and really help things is being affected. I'm concerned that oil could get at least a little pressure to the upside, and that could put more pressure on the consumer, right? That's my biggest thing. It's just the consumer here, because we're an economy of the consumer. And when the consumer struggles, well, we usually tend to struggle also.
Well, yeah. So what I've got TNX up here. So this is the actual rates, right? So the Fed Fund tool is cool because people, are betting on what they're going to do. But there's one thing about surveys and what people think is going to happen. And then there's this, which is people actually putting their money and betting and saying, hey, this is what I think 10-year interest rate should be, which is about midway down the curve. And nothing, right? So there was next to no reaction on that news. So they're not expecting higher rates, they're not expecting lower rates. So, like, as you said, more evidence that things are gonna sit. And it's one of those things, if you go through history, yes, rate cuts artificially inflate the market, rate hikes artificially deflate the market. What people really want is a level. They want consistency in the rates, right? It gets problematic, especially if you're running a business, to do any kind of lending or borrowing based off and rates are moving in any direction, right? What they want is they want stability. And that's kind of same with the tariff talk. I think the market would get totally used to tariffs if they just said, this is the plan, we're sticking to the plan, and that's it. I think what's messing the market more than anything is, right, tariffs up, tariffs down, right? I did a tweet laughing at it because there was an intraday chart of a Canadian tariff, right? It went to 25% to 55% and then back to 25% in the course of a day. That's the kind of stuff. And it's cheesy to say because you hear it all the time, but it's true, is that the market hates uncertainty. And that's what we're seeing a lot of right now. It's up, it's down. So I think if we get flat interest rates, if all these numbers start to come in a line and the Fed says we're pretty much done, hiking rates, and the tariff thing, if everything calms down, I think that's actually best case scenario for the market. I think any kind of volatility in monetary policy or anything like that would be wild. That's just not what the market wants to see right now. It wants to take a deep breath and then just let things chill, because once it kind of adapts to the new normal, it's usually fine, right?
We'll see what happens here. I mean, it's something definitely to watch. I'm surprised the CPI didn't show that egg spike.
Yeah, I have no idea how any of these things are calculated.
I read it, because I know that the people were going crazy about eggs.
It's still a good deal. You get what,
12
eggs
for
right? Less than $1 an egg. It's still a good deal.
Yeah, for sure, man. They're not gold yet. We'll see what happens there, guys. All right, taking a look into the market action. I see a lot of talk in the chat. I see some Tesla calls, I think, being bought, things like that. This is where I feel like, and this is where I'm trying to be safe here towards the open, because I feel like the market has just been itching still to be bullish. I know that there's been bearish talk, but when I catch retail's still in the bull game. They think this is coming right back to the highs. That's where I get concerned, because I feel like too many traders I don't think there was many traders betting on CPI spike today. And that's what I asked myself, is that the easy trade, I think, was to the upside today, off the number, right? Not saying that it will stay that way. And that's what I'm going to be watching. Can they go and undercut the 830 candle and bring it back? That's my concern here. And that's what I'm going to be watching towards the open. It doesn't mean that they're going to break it down towards the low, but they might undercut it and try to bring it back, right?
Yeah, like always, the close, right? The close is the most important print of the day, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
really when it comes to swing trading and investing, which, right, you got to think of it 90%, especially institutions, right? 99% of institutions aren't day trading. They're not looking at
Yeah.
intraday candles. They're not looking at intraday action. They're too big, right? So they need to take bets, and those bets need to last weeks to months. And right now, it's one of those things that they're just taking a bet that things are moving a little bit higher, but they're going to wait for the close, right? There's the whole saying, right? It actually has merit. A lot of Wall Street sayings I hate because they don't have merit, but this one does, which is amateurs open the market, professionals close it, right? Again, just means that if I'm a large institution making technical bets, I'm not doing it in the first 10, 15 minutes a day. That's where all the craziness is. And there's money to be made there. And that's what we're trading as small retail people, but as big guys, not so much. So yes, when it comes to intraday action, I'm actually excited to put on some day trades just because I think there's going to be a lot of volatility. But when it comes to my swing trades, my long-term stuff, I'm watching for the close, right? So I'll be back, keeping an eye on the close just because everything that happens before then is just people, airing out emotions, right? So one thing that was interesting when I was going through those charts there and people were mentioning Tesla, right? If you look at the Qs and then you just go quickly look at Tesla, there's some good relative strength, right? Tesla's breaking out of pre-market highs here, where the Qs still aren't, they're kind of in the middle of that, the CPI kind of candle there. So interesting. I don't know. Again, I'm not one that looks at the news. So I don't know if there's any Tesla news, but
There
some
is.
good relative
Of
strength to watch
course.
there.
There is, man. Just gotta catch me on X, right? As they say, you want to know the news? It's right here.
Sure.
Look, I'll put it on the screen here. It is none other than what happened yesterday. My man Trump taking his Tesla baby for a spin.
Oh, there you go.
They did a car commercial, man, in front of the White House. That's what everyone's saying. They did a little used car sales pitch in front of the White House, man. They parked up a bunch of Teslas and we're just like, I'd buy one. I'd buy it, right? And you guys should buy it. And everyone's treating this guy poorly. I mean, it's Elon Musk.
Yeah, well, of course.
Yeah,
right?
like everyone can hate him, but I mean, you wake up the next morning, you're still the richest man in America, and yeah, that
I mean,
I don't think I'd ever feel bad if I was him.
no.
But yeah, I asked before the CPI report, will Tesla bounce back today with this? It's helping it. I don't think it's hurting it this morning. But we'll see what happens there. Up there towards 245. Can it get to 250? One thing that I can tell you guys with Tesla is that it just loves to run traders over. Literally, like it runs over the shorts, it runs over the longs. So don't forget that today, because I think that it's a classic one. Now, when you catch the trend, like a really good trend day on Tesla, it can easily go 10, 11 points, right? So just keep that in mind also, that this is one that sometimes I feel like you have to learn to let go, and then it starts doing really well. Take a look at the average true range when Tesla's kind of like doing well, right? You can see that expansion. It could trade all the way up to $25, over 25, right? I mean, so it's going to move. It's going to move. And so what does this tell me? Small size, right? When I'm playing Tesla, be careful, right? Tesla's an easy way it loves to flush, take like quick moves down and then go. And so that's another thing that I always think about with Tesla. I actually look for the flushes right before it really kind of make a move. And another thing is, I feel like shorter time frames on Tesla just don't work. They just don't work, man. You're going to get chopped up in between that. So just be careful out there. We'll see what happens with Tesla today. I think it's in play at least. I think AMD is holding up a little bit better than expected for me, telling the action from like this action that I'm seeing in the SPY and the Qs. What do you think about that chart? At least AMD, because I just feel like it's holding a lot way better than all the other charts, at least, that I'm seeing out there in tech.
Well, long-term chart, right?
Long-term, no bueno. No bueno.
This is the dog.
The
so
dog
yeah,
in the shed.
Yeah, oversold bounce, maybe for a day trade or a little bit of a short-term swing. If semis are going to ever recover, I think it's going to be the king that takes us there, right?
Okay.
AMD down a little bit, Intel, right, just can't get going as well. So if I got to take a bet, it's going to be on one of the leaders. AVGO has been kind of quietly doing that as well. So full disclosure, I'm in some of this name, just this line right here. This is again my favorite setup. One of my systems. Well, and clear resistance, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 touches. This comes back down to that zone. The beauty of it is right where you're wrong, right? A close below this candle right here. It's time to get out, looking to see if this will migrate up. But I was just looking at the heat map here off the open, and it's a lot of green here. The red is kind of where you would expect it, right? In these more defensive kind of sectors. Consumer services, a little bit of healthcare down as well. And then everything else just blazing green. Robinhood up 7% today. That's a wild, wild trade. That's probably going to have a lot to do with Bitcoin. I was watching this. So this is one thing. I was talking to my buddies over at All Star Charts, Steven Straza and JC. We were having a phone call. And what they're doing a lot of is just the anchored VWAP from the August lows. They're finding it coming into play over and over and over again. So, the last dip that happened. And generally, when you see a major anchored VWAP like that coming into becoming interesting for different names, could mean that there's institutional buy programs. And we know that institutions generally fill buy programs around some sort of a VWAP. That's just, they need some point of reference, and that's quite often what they do. So Robinhood is right there as well. So this is one I'm actually watching today to pick up on in my swing account. Just massive move down. I think a little bit overdone, right? And right at that VWAP, and also just this congestion zone that happened back here. So a bit of a snapback rally in the 50s. Could be nice.
I wonder if do you know any institutional traders that use an anchored VWAP? That's something I need to go asking a little bit more of. And I got some guys that I can go to, but I don't hear it mentioned as much as I hear it in retail. At least that's what I will say.
Ken Griffin has a couple interviews where he talks about it, the richest billionaire in the world. About
that's good. That's good to hear. That's why I asked you. I know if anyone's heard it, probably Michael's heard it. So there's
a lot of systems around
top, right?
But and for those
Ken
who don't,
is that payment for order flow money.
Well, and for those who don't know, right, just what we're talking about is that if, say, I'm Warren Buffett, I'm not buying. I don't have an Interactive Brokers account open. I'm not buying shares, right? I want to buy. Let's use Robinhood because it's up here. I want to buy 2 million shares of Robinhood for Berkshire Hathaway. I'm going to send that to a Ken Griffin, a 72 point, one of these guys, and they're going to fill it. Now, how as Warren Buffett am I going to know whether I got a good price or not? Right? I can't just say I sent it to them and it was $30 and then they got me 50. Right? I don't know what happened in the meantime, and I'm not watching intraday charts or anything like this. So what they usually do is they'll negotiate the price in advance, and that price will happen around a VWAP generally. So the easiest way to look at it, and this is why intraday VWAP can work. So if we use intraday, for example, right, they'll say, okay, you got filled. At the end of the day, the VWAP on Rocket Lab here was $20, and you got 19. So then Warren Buffett go, okay, well, I got less than the volume weighted average price for the day. So good, I'm not going to fire you today. And if this is 20,
we'll use you next time.
And they got me 30, then I'm going to say, okay, well, I'm going to go down the street to the next guy. Yeah. So what will happen is quite a bit is they use these algorithms and they say, hey, if it's below VWAP, buy it, because we want to get below VWAP from Warren Buffett. And if it gets above VWAP, stop buying. And that's why sometimes you'll see these undercuts and these rallies back through. And that's good for an order that can be filled in a day. But sometimes they take weeks. Sometimes they take months. This is why people use kind of weekly, week-to-date VWAPs. You can use month-to-date VWAPs, the year-to-date VWAPs, that kind of thing. And again, they're just trying to, it's just a metric to say you got a good fill versus you got a bad fill, right? So this is how the big guys work, right? This is how not us. We can just click a button to buy, click a button and sell, which is funny because a lot of people kind of, ragging on a lot of these institutions, not knowing that we have it so much easier than them, right? Because we're small. We can zig and zag and be in cash one day and be fully invested at the end of the day, and the next day be back in cash. If Warren Buffett has to do something to a stock, it's going to take weeks, right? Look at Oxy. How long was he buying Oxy for? He was buying Oxy at this level right here, this kind of 50, I think 53, 54.
Yeah.
All this whole floor right here is Warren Buffett, because he wanted it at this price. Every time it dipped below that price, he bought some over and over and over and over again. And that's how they have to get filled. They can't just, I want to buy Oxy, I'm going to buy it, because the second that order hits the market, the stock's going to, 20% up. They've lost 20% when it comes right back down. So these are the kind of games they play. And that's one of the reasons, one of the things that we're doing here is because we can piggyback off those. It's one of the things that I did when I was trading prop before HFTs and dark pools and hidden orders. You could see them on the tape. You go, okay, and we'd call them the axe, right? You'd say Goldman Sachs, the axe. And this basically means Goldman Sachs is doing a big sell order on the stock today. And you could see it because every time it would get to that price, Goldman Sachs would flash up a big order in order to get sell and do any momentum. And as soon as you realize that was the game, right? I'm going to short before Goldman Sachs does every time, right? Cover back to Goldman Sachs as that order steps down and do it over and over again. Now, of course, right, it's all algorithmic now. No one's dumb enough to put their orders out in the market anymore, right? They're going to hidden orders, dark pools, flashing orders that come out, disappear, and all of that. But back in the day, that's what happened. So the VWAP is just kind of a proxy for that, I guess.
All right, let's see what happens here, guys. 928. We're getting towards the 930. GV did wake up in the small cap space. Thanks, Steph, for bringing that in there. I'm looking around to see what else is being brought to you guys and what people are watching. I'm seeing some talk on Gamble. Don't even.
GMBL, is that?
Yeah, gambling.com. Getting a little bit of a jump there towards 1270s. I don't think this is anything. This is a nothing burger. This is someone fishing. So I won't put him on blast who was talking about this. But you know how it is. There's always somebody in the streets out there, guys.
Yeah.
But that's why I watch the streets, guys. There's nothing wrong with watching the streets, right? It's like, there's always going to be someone yelling on the street corner. That's what used to be. That's the saying, right? That's why I say on the streets, right? Because back in the old days, there was that guy on the side of the streets being like, "Extra, extra." Read all about it,
right? You can fade them is a good thing. You can learn the ones that are really bad, and then again, like we talked about, anyone who's speaking in absolutes, they're not real, right? Because they would have gotten wiped out at some point, because no one's absolutely right. And find these people. Again, I've got a list, and every time the market goes down, if these guys start to get real loud, then I know bottom's probably in, right? Because I just know that they've been bearish forever, right?
I think that's what we need to do, man. We need to create a little profile that calls out the bulls and bears. The Bears are 80% gold. All right, guys. After the market here, guys, there's the bell. Be safe out there in the markets today, guys. I'm watching to see if I play this GV out the gates. It's looking strong right now, guys, but be careful. This thing is a wild, wicked mover. AU crossing down, telling me that gold is on the pullback right out the gates with some alerts out there. So be safe out there, traders. It's going to be a hell of a day today, guys. I'm looking to see if we do this kind of runaway gap, right? Can we run away from the action and just keep pushing? Right now, sideways action here. Let's see what happens. AMD down out the gates, KRE up. I'm watching the financials, industrial space. Remember I talked about yesterday how big of a day it was for the industrials to hold on. I'm watching that low like a hawk today, guys, and we'll see what happens if it does undercut that. That's on the XLI, 130.16, holding this morning and trying to reverse. We'll see if maybe some growth areas, of course, take a lead, like maybe the XLK, right? That's looking good here right out the gates here, holding 212. So that's a good area to kind of take a look at on the XLK. Of course, you can look at SMH, right? Maybe if you just wanted to see the semiconductors. How's that one looking? Not too bad either. Nice rip on that one. I think if there's any area where I'm seeing just quick strength, SMH.
So yeah, I drew in, as always, pre-market lows, pre-market highs on the SPY. It's a wide range, so it'll probably be a long time before we hit any of those. But to narrow it down a little bit more, I think this kind of 563 area, right? This was after the bounce. Look how kind of how much resistance was there, right? And that was after the initial move. We came down, we held this low, and then pushed higher. So just to get a little bit more tight, I think anywhere from these lows to this high is something that I want to watch on a closing basis. So as my alerts come through and as I start to take some of these trades, I'll certainly let you guys know. We have some things popping through here. I'm still working on this bug where it's not, the first print I kind of ignore, but iRobot is one that I'm interested. If the market moves higher, this has been an absolute dog, but it's just setting up that trade perfectly of under VWAP all morning, looking to break and kind of crash through. Again, just these are little scalps, but yeah, if we can get through that zone, it's like 415 or so. That's going to be an interesting play there on that name. So nice little cheapie. I don't trade cheapies too much, but we're watching that, and then again we're watching the SPY here. Again, stuck in that range. We need to see some movement one way or another before I get too excited. It could be one of those things. They had a big number and now they're just going to chill out for a day. Right? The bulls take the win. You got a big gap up. They're washing their hands and saying that's enough. But again, we need to see a little more action.
All right, looking around out there, guys, trying to see what's up the sleeve. SMH probably one of the best areas right now that I'm seeing the move. SOXL getting through the high there, so you can look at SOXL maybe for an opportunity there as it starts to push through the 1873s. We'll look to see if that makes a move to 19. And GV down. She goes back to 7, so maybe that's flushing out. I'm leaving that one alone right now. And ready to take some shots here in Intel. Let's see what happens here. Let's see if I can get Intel, and then we can start looking for a nice little trade here.
iRobot getting close to triggering. The SPY is getting close to, again, that range right there. So I'm just watching this iRobot really closely. I think it's just a vacuum cleaner company, but what a dog. I know this was one of those meme stocks back with the GameStop thing because it was shorted.
Yeah.
But then, like most meme stocks, all the way back down. Just a big gap, just looking for it to fade a little bit into that gap. So we did get some coming through here. So GV actually triggered. I added that to the short side. I'm watching these things. I'm
there you go.
Trading them. I'm not brave enough, but that's one that's interesting as well. Some of these I'm gonna go back and
rocking and rolling.
Yell at DeepSeek a little bit here. It's not the other one that's interesting here. So is Rocket Lab, right? So Rocket Lab is printing a blue arrow. So I have that on watch as well. Again, up a little bit too much just from the testing that I've done. So I may potentially fade this name back down if that's something that I can get here.
Small cap that's hot, LFMD. I think you talked about this one yesterday, or somebody did. And I could see it. I was like, is that LFMA? No, LFMD. Nice little pop out there. I'm just watching it here. It's a little too far gone for me to jump up here at the 640 spot, but nice little move there.
Yeah, that was on the list yesterday for a potential short, but yeah, looks like a nice little rocket here on that guy. Yeah, continuing to watch, just taking a look at the SPY, range bound. So we came back again to this zone that I've highlighted, and then we backed off. That's now 3 times. So needs to get through that level with some sort of ferocity in order to get interesting to see. Again, just haven't really done anything. Watching the iRobot closely. Rocket Lab, I don't know. It's one of those, I've got like a bullish bent on the market, so the shorts I'm ignoring a little bit more. So what will happen is all the shorts will end up working, and then all the longs won't, just by the way it works. But
all right, market kind of hanging in there right now. Q's stronger than the SPY. That's one thing that I'm seeing, at least right off the gates. SPY, Q's got back to 481, while SPY struggled at the 563. Let's see if it can get back to pre-market highs on the Qs and then maybe just grind the market higher, right? So maybe it's the Qs that has the outperformance today. The high there, 481.71. We're at 480.36. Let's see if we go back to that 481.
Yeah, so that I think you're right with all of these high ticks, right? Of this is where sellers came in and kind of said that's enough for that print when it came to CPI. So it's really just seeing, okay, if we reclaim that and we hold it, that's going to be an interesting play. Everything being just a little bit slow, and relative weakness in the SPY. So that's something we need to watch. It seems to just flip depending on the day. Maybe either the tech's leading us up or the SPY's leading us up. In this case, definitely tech, at least off the open. That's doing the heavy lifting.
All right, watching really closely here. Intel, let's see if it starts to make the move here. I'm gonna take a bigger shot on this, guys. Let you guys know here.
So yeah, there's Intel trying to coil back up. SMH, very strong. So the SMH has definitely been the leader, and that's what's pulling the Qs up with, again, the SPY. It's actually selling a little bit here and starting to push potentially to closer to lows. So, right, something we got to keep an eye on. iRobot never ended up triggering, and that's selling here. So again, still on watch. I'll still take the trade if the trade happens, but currently looking a little bit bearish. So there is Meta actually triggering to the short side from the system. That's interesting.
That is interesting.
SoFi.
Short
as well
on SoFi. SoFi.
Yeah,
trigger.
always fading the gaps, at least for now.
Yeah.
You know, just the setup. So yeah, both of those things. SoFi on the last second kind of reversed itself there, but this is something that I'll watch as well for a potential trade. I'm trying to take, like I mentioned yesterday, trying to take more trades, trying to take way more trades, and then just smaller on each one. Less emotional attachment to each trade, right? If you're taking them smaller, and you're just taking more of them, they all just kind of become numbers and more of an intraday hedge. Something that gets harder to do if you're more discretionary, but is way easier if you're more systematic, where you see the signal, you take the trade, you kind of move on from there. Meta, I think, probably just even too expensive to take too much on. I have to take like 10 shares with the buying power I got left here. So back to the SPY. So we're
looking to see if start taking some trades here, guys. One that I'm looking at is that LFMD on the VWAP right now. I'm thinking if I jump in now, or do I look for a little bit more cut down? I want to see a cut down towards 610. That's where I really would like to jump in it. That's kind of like that first support that had a little bit of a wick down there. Would like to see it retrace some of that action here and then get after it. We'll see what happens here. Yeah, 50% would be like 614. So somewhere in that 614 to 610 range on the fib retracement there makes sense for me.
Novo Nordisk is another one that I'm interested here from the long side. This one's just been getting, I think there's been like 3 days I've been saying I'm interested in this from the long side, and I don't think it's triggered any of those 3 days. So this might continue to be that, but so far it's doing okay. So I have my Rocket Lab, I have my SoFi, and then I'm watching my iRobot, and then potentially this one as well, right? So again, just more trades, smaller, just trying to do a little bit better as a scalper. Just get in, get the money, move on. And a lot of this, right? So 2 shorts and 2 longs, market neutral trading, I guess we could call it, but SPY right in the middle of its opening range and right in the middle of this range that I kind of marked in the pre-market. So that's really what we got to watch to see if we're going to get something.
All right, guys, long here on Intel. Big position here, guys, taking a shot on Intel. I'm looking at LFMD, but I'm going to have to focus on Intel here, guys. Took a big bet there right off of the break of the 87 spot there. 2,500 shares deep here, guys. Taking a shot. And I told my story about the E-valves where I got to take a shot here. And right now, we're going to go ahead and take some profits here. If we can break the 2105s here, boom, just grab that cash there, guys. So I wanted to give myself a nice cushion on the day. Just did just that, guys. So there goes a nice $487 trade to start it off here, guys. So I just wanted to take a quick scalp off the opening kind of maybe drive here, and now look for a pullback to really start to give that drive. Right now, give me a fake out to the downside, wash some of the first bulls, and then see if we can continue. Look at that Intel push there. Of course, this was on the playbook. It's one of my top watches for the day. Has news, and one of the things that I said was multiple catalysts have come in for Intel in the last couple of weeks, but the price hasn't gotten that appreciation just yet. I think a lot of that, the uncertainty. So that's why I wrote on the playbook today that if CPI came in good, would that put the uncertainty to bay, like at rest for a little while, and allow this move to get the appreciation based on the catalysts that are out there? I think you're seeing a little action on that. Another thing that tells me this is just the pure amount of volume that's come into Intel on like kind of monthly charts and things like that. I think there's bigger bets being put on that Intel can turn things around, whether that be because they sell, whether that be because they spin off, whether that be from many different ways, right? One thing's certain, they know Intel's struggling and companies are looking at them trying to find growth.
Yeah, and it's one of those, you look at it and you say, okay, at some point, this is just such a darling, I guess, of a US company, right? That they're going to have to shut down entirely, or they're going to have to figure it out, right? There's moments in kind of every company's life where it just kind of makes sense to take the shot. And some big investors, some guys I've been talking to have been doing that as well, and saying, right, I'm basically buying Intel knowing that there's a 10% chance that it goes bankrupt. But if that 90% chance happens, probably going to get a double from here, right? Like, I don't think they're going to
pullbacks out there. Just looking around, AMD pulling back a little bit there. Industrial struggling, SMH still holding on.
Yeah, the SPY actually just broke that level that I had marked here. So we're below that at least for a little bit, and then we'll see if we break it back up. We break it up back up through. So I have my trades on here. I'm kind of a little bit out of buying power, so I'm just waiting for potentially something.
Michael, I need more buying power.
Oh,
we need to get a button for that. Mass buying power, please.
But it's a good problem to have. I actually wrote a whole
not a bad problem, not a bad problem at all.
That you should be, right? It's one of those, you should be expending as much of your buying power as you can safely, right? So again, my problem, as I've been very open on my journey, and that I'm not a day trader, I'm a swing trader, so I'm trying to make this go. And one thing, again, I keep talking to my swing trading buds and showing them my results and how much I'm sucking, and they give me feedback. And a lot of the feedback was, why don't you just mirror what you do with swing trading? And with swing trading, I take a lot of positions small. Like when I say I bought a lot of stocks yesterday, didn't mean I bought one stock real big. I bought like 6 or 7 different stocks, right? So it's like, why not do that from the day trading standpoint, where I'm looking to get into 4 or 5 positions at a time, small. And then as long as they all don't go to hell at the same time, then I'm okay. And if they do, then right, that's just a bad trade, and you kind of move on, right? Yeah.
I think that's a really good approach to take a look at, guys. All right, guys, I'm trying to get in here on LFMD. The only thing is the offer just jumped up on me. So I'm going to try to get in on the bid side here at the 618 or the 615 pullback level here. It went to that 611. I've talked about 610 to 614 buy area. I'm trying to get filled. If I don't get filled, it is what it is, man. But the order's out there sitting at 615 for LFMD here.
So yeah, it did end up taking. Just wanted to show the Novo Nordisk entry.
Ooh,
right?
There you go.
Green arrow. So that one's going. So
yeah.
Right, my Rocket Lab.
That one got hit hard yesterday with the drug number. So it's a nice little bounce back also.
Yeah, and again, that's the idea behind these, right? I'm not saying that this is a good company, right? If you look at the daily chart from a swing trading point of view, I would never buy this thing. But
Yeah.
the whole premise is I'm just looking for profit taking off the open on gaps. If you were short Novo and you had a big gap down, you'd probably hit the button to take some money, and that's kind of what I'm looking for with these setups. Is just saying, okay, had a nice gap down. If I was short, right, great, I'm going to take some profits on that. And same with the long side, right? You see these big gap ups and then fade a little bit off the open as well. And that's the idea, just to say, okay, if I was up a lot on this, then I would fade it off the open. And then again, just you guys see me kind of systematize this. You see the alerts coming through now, trying to do whatever it takes to make sure that I don't have to do too much thinking intraday, because I'm not very good at it. So why not let the computer think for me? I'll do my thinking when the markets close and I come up with new ideas. SPY tried to put in a little bounce there off those lows and then failed. So the next level I'm watching would be 558 if we fail on this low. And that's a pretty big push down, because that is the 2-day VWAP. So that is the, again, reason I look at this and the reason I'm interested in the 2-day VWAP. It's just saying, what is the average price between yesterday and today? Are people still up money? The people that bought yesterday? Right now, yes. And if that changes, then again, that gets a little bit dicey there. So
all right, watching the VXX for potential short opportunity, right? I mean, personally, I would like it to get back towards like 56, but watching it, guys, watching it.
Yeah, so that would be, right, again, as we talked about yesterday, that's the inverse of the SPY. So if the SPY holds on here, the VXX will sell off. If the SPY drops here, VXX will rocket higher. Right?
I think there was about one day last year that this was the complete opposite, and I just got left with my head scratching. I was like, "What the heck, man?"
It can. I don't know.
Very rare occurrences, right, guys? Where the VIX will go up and the stocks go up also. That was the day where I was like, whoa. SPY and Q up, VIX closes up. What the hell happened?
Yeah, someone took a massive protection bet. And usually what happens, so the reason that they're so correlated is because market makers that are taking these options are immediately hedging themselves in stocks, right?
This is what I was a little concerned about, guys. This is why I took my quick cash on Intel. I was like, yo, Mitch, don't get greedy this morning. When you get that cash, take that cash. You're going to take a big bet. One of the things with big bets is paying yourself along the way, right? Yeah. And I could have just done like a half, but I wanted to build a morning cushion, because then now this gives me the ability to take that big sizing again and not just get wrecked immediately, right? So that's what I did. Now I need to look to see what happens here, because this is that undercut. So we just undercut that CPI number, right? Yeah. This is what I meant by like washing of the bulls at the gates, the day traders that bought in the pre-market. That's what I'm thinking. And now do they bring it back? And of course, they're going to probably wash you a couple times here. Big level that I made this morning, and I got to bring it up on the charts here to show you guys that. And I did this before we got to this level, so it's not like I'm trying to go back to it. And I'll show you how I did it. So I looked at the SPY and I just went to the daily. And I was just like, you know what? Where could this kind of like stop off? So I was like, all right, so I'm just going to do the close of yesterday. I'm going to put like kind of a body on this left-hand side where the low is to look for this V type of shape recovery, right? So I always talk about how, and for some reason in some books, they're like, there's no such thing as a V bottom. Well, this is exactly that V bottom shape, right? V bottom. So I'm looking to see, can it hold that?
Yeah, throw that book out, right? Again, I was always taught.
Throw that book out, my man said. I love it. I love it, Michael. I don't know who the hell was the one that brought that information, but it doesn't make sense to me either.
No, right. Again, I quote the old man sayings, and it's always that tops are a process and bottoms are an event. And what they mean by that is that bottoms are, look at 2008, look at 2020 or 2000 with the tech bubble. It's usually flush and rip.
They don't give you a chance to come back, man. If it was this big old rounding bottom, they'd give everybody in the world the chance to come back. right? What they do is they scare. You see market in turmoil on NBC. You stop out of your long-term positions, and then all of a sudden you look back the next week, and those long-term positions would have been up 30 or 40%. You're like, what the hell? Well, that's what happens when we listen too much to the TV. That's why I always tell you guys, take everything we say and take a look to see if what we're saying is true. Because even if we feel some way, doesn't mean that you need to feel a way also, guys. Make sure you understand that trading is a lot on building your own decision-making skills and learning through the noise, right? How can I deal with the noise, and how can I make my own decisions?
Yeah, and it's anyone who always asks me like, oh, but what stock are you buying? That's completely irrelevant, because what you got to do is, right, you're looking to build a system that you can repeat, whether or not you're feeling good that day, feeling bad that day, whether you're seeing the market correctly, not seeing the market correctly. You're trying to say, this is an idea in which I have, and I'm going to trade a particular way. And then, right, over the long run, my hope is that all this system will have positive EV. I'll continue to make money if I continue to do kind of X, Y, and Z. SPY is a little bit too much for me on this, but Intel actually did trigger from the short side to that as well. But on this flush down, I actually took profits in both my Rocket Lab and in, geez, I already forgot the other one, SoFi. Not quite to target. I was looking at the bottoming tail that was happening there in the S&P 500, and I just said, okay, dude, good enough. Let's just take those. So I still have my Nova Nordis, and I'm still watching my iRobot, and that's about it, I think, right now.
All right, guys, looking for LFMD to do the liquidity move now. So you guys can see here what I'm looking at, guys. I talk about this a lot for VWAP trades. I look for 3 attempts underneath VWAP, look for the recovery. But lately, it's 3 moves underneath the VWAP. Look for the liquidity move, then recovery. So 1, 2, 3, and you get this look right now where I'm sure people are buying. Like technicals tell me to buy right there, but now I'm watching for them to get washed and then come back in. So give me a look where you give me a wick into this area and then come back up, right? So that's exactly the trade that I'm looking for now. Give me a quick bid action where it goes to like 615, 610, and then comes back up. So we'll see what happens here on LFMD. And part of me itching to buy here tells me that the stops should be right here. And I'm going to look for the stops to get triggered and then for me to get in. How can I look at this? Well, as simple as this, guys. I'm going to show you guys it on the time and sales and what I mean by that. I think we got to do this more often. And I'd love to take moments where I feel like I can teach to kind of show you guys this, right? So one of the things that I do is I filter out by size, but I'm going to take that off here so that you guys can see all the action, right? So we want to see the tape speed up on the move down, right? And quick bidding action getting filled, right? So you could use the market depth, of course, to kind of see where the bids are too. But what I'm really looking for is a speeding up of the tape, right? So this should essentially speed up, not like it is right now. You see how there's no movement, like nothing's going through? Well, I'm going to expect to see just a quick, the printer's getting printed, right? That's what I'm looking for here. That's what we mean by liquidity, right? And so we'll see what happens here. If it just goes from 625, so be it. That's not the strategy, right? And so let's see what happens.
So both SoFi and Rocket Lab are selling now after I just took the profits on them a little bit early. It was in this area. Both of them were consolidating, and the reason for it, in this area as well, they were just kind of consolidating there. Again, the ultimate target on this strategy, as I refine it, is the 2-day VWAP, but I need to do a little better on that. And the reason I got out initially is because the SPY was putting in what looked like a really green candle at the time, but that got rejected really fast. So again, just one of those, when I do my journaling, I'll make my notes and say, here's the amount of money that you could have missed. based on the targets that I had versus where I killed them a little early, but that's just kind of the nature of it. But yeah, we are selling that kind of topping tail. Like that's real. You know, that's one of those that you kind of look at and you say, is that a weird print? But no, I was watching that in real time. We did spike up and then we did reject from that zone there. So again, I'm Intel. I should have taken, right? The system said take that short right there at 2090. It's just, it seems a little bit too extended, and Groupon is actually saying to short as well, but it seems a little bit too extended at this point for me to initiate any new shorts. Half hour in, and we've kind of been selling a bit all morning.
Looking for a wick reversal pattern here, guys. So it's getting closer towards that 10 o'clock time. VXX, remember I talked about 56 being the area that I was looking at? We're right there. So now I want to see a wick, right? Where if I went in at 56 right now, and I was even thinking about it, I was like, but if I go in now, what is it going to do? It's going to make this huge wick off that 56, stop me out, and then come back. So I'm waiting for that action versus taking the trigger here, right? So,
well, so right here on the SPY is that 2-day VWAP I was talking about. So that's again my next level. Below that, it's post-market lows, and we're talking 555. And then below that, it's going to be yesterday's low. So right now, it's good to just to zoom out every now and then, right? And say,
yeah, man,
we're just inside yesterday's range, right? So this is still all noise. It's kind of what we talked about off the open, but this is an interesting area for me. If I was someone who had a plan to trade this, I would just buy a little bit right here for a potential bounce. But again, it's one of those. That's why I talk about this stuff out loud, and this is how you do it, right? Does this 2-day VWAP actually hold any kind of edge? Well, let's watch it for a couple days, but we're right there now, bouncing a little bit, but right, just so far, just market noise. Would be a good place for it to dig in, would be a decent algorithmic place if the market was going to dig in a little bit there.
All right, looking for this wick on LFMD to stop on the way down, start coming back, and that's when I start to trigger in. The VXX made that 56 move. Now I got 56.28 on the top side of that. So that's going to be the risk here if I take the shot.
Momo I missed off the open, but actually put in another green arrow here. Hello group, whatever this is. So this might just be another shot. Again, for the game plan, I think with this, all the testing that I've done is right off the open. And then for that first hour, that's where kind of the interesting action is. And then after that, there's pretty much nothing. So
all right, orders out. Orders out on the VXX at 56.10. So it's at 56 right now. Just went to the undercut, try to go back to the 9 EMA. I'm looking for one more bounce towards the highs, and I'm going to start filling in here. I'm going to go 300 shares first. And then as I start to get the fill there and I start to get action back down and the market coming back, I want to see certain names really take off. We'll see what happens there. Intel also coming back towards 21 is a watch for me. It's just more which one do I want to go trading now. So keeping an eye on that also.
So yeah, I did get filled on that Momo, and so far that's always a good sign. You buy it and instantly
long on LFMD also.
So let's see what happens to Momo with the 2-day VWAP. That's 795. Right, so just a little bit of a move from there is kind of all I'm looking for. And
interesting action. The VIX doesn't want to let me in. That usually is a telling.
That's usually a good thing. Yeah, if you don't
you know what I'm talking about.
If you don't get your fill, you're usually right. That's just how it goes.
Yeah,
or if you get filled too little. I remember
when it just runs from you. That's usually a good sign, man.
You've got a limit order out for 1,000 shares. All the time at the day trading firm, you get filled for 200 or 300, and then it goes, and you're like, oh man,
yeah, on the good position.
Yeah, that's going to be the best trade of the day right there. I just don't have, enough. So
what I do is I take the order off. Remember, traders, you can take the order off.
Yeah,
so it's not coming to my order. Why am I going to just sit there? I'm just like a sitting duck, essentially. Come and get me. No. We don't play that game here, guys. We don't play poker with our hand open.
So yeah, so far, like this is insane. Right, this yellow line is a 2-day VWAP and right to the tick. So right, still it needs to hold here and bounce a little bit higher, but let's start paying attention to that on the SPY, because again, if this one setup is going to pass an eval, then this next question is always, what's the next setup, right?
Love it.
You know, you can't ever sit and say, I have a setup that works, because it will stop working eventually. It's just
Eric loving the action this morning, saying he absolutely loves Trade the Pool. And he's now a new lifer. Definitely enjoying the action this morning. And like always, we try to give it to you how we see it, right? Fully transparent. There's nothing that's for 100%, and we're just going to tell you guys how we see it, right? You guys make your own shots and call them, but like always, it's all about learning here. That's what we're all about. Love your mindset, Mitch, and that's what it's about. I try to make sure that the number one thing that I don't lose, guys, is my mental capital, right? There's going to be times where I'll show frustration because that's trading, guys. I'm not going to hide it from you guys, versus just how some people will act like, oh no, now they get deer in headlights when they lose. No, I just tell you guys how it is. There's days where I get frustrated, like yesterday's trade, right? Remember yesterday's NVDL trade? That was a 2-point trade, over 2-point trade that I messed up by making a slight mistake. But guess what? As a trader that takes subjective entries, like you call the shots and you create execution, like you said it, Michael, you're going to make mistakes. That's why you trade more systematically, where things can make the order and the calls for you. But it's part of the game, right? It's part of the game. And I think that sometimes you got to understand that, right? All right, LFMD, I took the shot, guys. I'm long on that one, right? You guys can see it right here, 200 shares, 615. I got a good amount of share size there that came in that makes me feel confident that at least I got the liquidity move. Now I need to see it go right back through VWAP and through this high, which is the 630. If it gets sold off at the 630, that's a concern. So we'll be watching to see if we get right back up there and towards the intraday high, which is 650s. I'm just doing this based on the pattern, based on the strategy, and taking the shot. We'll see what happens.
SPY looks like it's coiling down a little bit to maybe test that two-day VWAP again. So we'll see what happens there. If we
trying to give me a shot to get in.
If we do end up holding here, so we're there and we're through. So that's
I'm in.
quick. But
short
again,
on the VXX.
Yeah, we got to see the level, right? The fact that it held to the tick was pure coincidence, right? We need to see what happens on the actual zone itself. Because again, we got to remember, yes, we've been selling pretty much since the open, but we're still inside yesterday's range. We still gapped up and we're nowhere near threatening that low. So, you know, I'm not concerned at all about my longs. I obviously loved my longs way earlier on the open, but we are still up a little bit on the day. And again, the question we got to see is, as we're pulling in. Ooh, that was a quick bounce on the SPY there.
Yeah, I'm over here working. I'm working. You guys see the position I'm trying to add.
As we're pulling in, do people get really excited to buy? If they really get excited to buy this dip, then great, right? That's what we're looking to see.
Another runaway from my limits. Just to put it in perspective, I can show you guys it, but they're just running away from my entry now. I got in there and I'm trying to add at 56.15s, but as soon as I put it, that thing started dropping real quick. So I think I'm not the only one looking at that 56 level on the VXX. So VXXX, you'll see it here. It went popped right above that 56. I already took some entry. What am I doing? I'm just using a trend line approach. I'm like, okay, so come up into this spot. That's where I can be adding into that trend line. Closes above that, of course, will be scary for me. But I'm just using that trend line for entry. And I already had it drawn, so it went right to it. So I took the shot. I just said, you know what? Don't overthink it now. You got the chance back. Just make sure that you take it with a smaller size. And what I'm really looking for is now the 55.50 crack, right? Like come back through this with the SPY doing the very similar move, but on the opposite side, right? Or the Q's doing the very similar move, but on the opposite side, back above VWAP and then hold VWAP on a pullback. Let's see what happens, guys.
Yeah. So again, right, this is something, and when I say we, I do mean we as a group, right? Let's build some strategies together and look at the 2-day VWAP now twice, right? Acted as an area here. So this might be one of those that if we see this action, that might just be a trade in and of itself, right? We see a flush and a retest of 2-day VWAP after a gap. So this will only be relevant on gap days, and when the gaps start to fill, that could be interesting. And that's why, again, when I was talking to the guy who built this system, he said that's the ultimate target for these particular trades, is because we got to get to that 2 day. If we get to that 2 day VWAP, he saw them bounce over and over and over and over again. So he said, okay, well, in that case, just get me out. Take it a little bit before then. So a little bit happier now that I took that SoFi and Rocket Lab earlier, but they would have hit the target. So I should have put them in.
All right, guys, looking to take some cash on the first action here through towards the VWAP. I have an order placed right below VWAP here to take the money and then look to see if it bounces. So you guys will see it just cash in right there. You guys see that cash right there. I have an order to take about 250, 249 if it gets there. That's about 1.48%. Let's see what happens here. Have a break even stop right now. So if it comes back on me, I'll just get out and just reposition in probably off of the move, right? And so we'll see what happens here, guys. And one thing I told you guys early on today that I was going to do is I was going to take shots, take them, be measured, try to get after it, try to stay what? In the zone, very important.
Yeah, so I think for the question now is on, and you got the VIX there and the SPY is, I'm still anchoring to that CPI candle. So if we come to the bottom of that CPI candle and reject, that to me is very interesting information. It means people were waiting for that. But if we start to break back through that CPI candle, again, another one of those undercut and rally scenarios where they flush the retail traders out that bought on the CPI candle, like you were talking about, Mitch, and then they just start to rally it back through. So
all right, securing some more cash because I think we could get another bounce here. So I secured 75 on the stop and I have 250 on the positive here. So I'll show you guys this straight from the platform. I like to show you guys it because I think it's a good way to go about it sometimes, where I notice right here, I feel like I could get this bounce, right? So if it bounces back through this level, the 9 EMA, I want to go ahead and just take the profits. If it does, there it is. There's the bounce, right? And I think it could go right back towards this 56.20s. That's why I'm getting out a little bit there. Now I'll be watching to see if the market can really take off here. And there's other plays I can play, right? I can get back into Intel. I can get back into other plays. This is where sometimes I feel like I hang on to the trade instead of just waiting for the move and then just still playing it. There's plenty of plays that will work if the cues start ripping, right? And it's not going to be one play. It's going to be multiple plays. So I'm trying to remind myself that to stay in the game right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just looking here.
And building a cushion on the day, right? Now I have 451 on the day to work with. And I'm going to work with it. Let's go.
Well, and that's right. Again, I think it was Steph that said she was implementing that as a rule. And it's one of those things that we did back when I used to trade prop for a living. Is that, right, you would always be very, very cautious and try to make that first trade a winner, even if it was just a couple bucks, just to get it in your pocket, because then that's kind of your house.
Green on the screen, man. Green on the screen. So important for traders. So,
right, you say, okay, I'm okay risking a percentage of that money that I already have. And that gives you kind of the ability to say, okay, I can trade around that now. And regardless of what happens, I'll probably walk away with a couple bucks today. And that puts you in just a great mindset if that first trade really works out, as long as you're okay playing around that, right? And saying, okay, and you have the discipline that if you start to give it all back and go into the red, that you end up stopping, right? That's the biggest thing is that discipline.
All right, guys, I'm looking around. I'm trying to focus on what's been doing well. Of course, it's technology and healthcare utilities leading the game right now. So growth moved back, right? I mean, financial services are dragging. That's probably not what we want to see. And that's why I think the SPY is not as strong as it could look. But I'm looking at the industrial space and the cyclical space to see if it goes green in kind of the next couple of minutes, right? I need to see that kind of space really strong with the move too, to try to show me a little bit more that it's in a broadening out in this rally, not just technology. But one thing tells me that technology is staying strong is just the SMH. So if you look at the SMH, this is looking pretty, guys. This is not even pulled back, right? Like the market pulled back below the opening action. But if I look at this makes me feel a lot, and you guys know it, I'm still have a little slight bearish mentality in it, but this is holding pretty well here on SMH.
Yeah, and that's been the leader all day, right? SMH has been doing well. The Qs have been doing well. The Qs are well back above. They never got to the low of that candle. I'll take it here. Yeah, this, right? And this is what we're talking about, is this candle right here. This is the CPI print candle. So where the SPY is still below that and spent a lot of time actually below that, the Qs did not, right? The Qs dipped below it and then started to rally back through. So relative strength there is obviously in the tech sector. And when it comes to the SPY, again, it's trying to get back up. That's why I've got that. I had that line there all day because that's the low of that candle. We dipped down to test it and then bounced. So this area, I think, is of very significant importance. We have to be able to deal with this potential area to see if we can get back through that zone. So my Momo is flirting with my target here. And I'm trying to have the patience to not kill it, but I probably will. Novo is just flirting around. And then again, the only thing on watch is this iRobot, this awful stock. Again, triggered there for a second. I'm just not interested there.
One thing to remember, long term, not saying the negative towards your trade, Michael, just long term, iRobot had to struggle a lot because kind of the buyout, right, with Amazon and things like that. Mm-hmm. Some people were thinking that this was going to turn around. Why? Because maybe Trump being president would allow more of this type of trade to happen, but it's been a disaster story since that happened. Right? I mean,
oh yeah, it's been one of those awful meme stocks that just can't get. Yeah. Right. So
and if it can't do this in an AI day and robotics being a focus, I mean,
this is this was the meme stock, right? Remember, this was an $188, $200 stock.
LFMD guys.
Stuff. So
got cut out.
Yeah, $200 stock way back in the day, and then just right. So all the way down to zero. Right. It looks a lot like AMC, a lot like all these meme stocks. Right. I've always said that if you're a meme trader, best of breed has always still been GameStop. It's just because they have a whole bunch of money. Right, they should just shut down the stores and become a hedge fund.
Yeah, more like they make a lot of money off of their traders, but
all these things, right? I feel bad for the people who got sucked into the cult, right? Because they're just selling to you over and over and over again, and
that's for sure.
The company. I always say that's the one thing you don't want to fight. If you want to fight the Fed, you shouldn't, but go right ahead.
Look at Groupon, man, holding on to the gains this morning. Nice looking pattern there off the 9 EMA. Just went back there to 316. So Groupon holding on well. And I talked about this in the holiday time, how that's when Groupons get bought. So if there's any quarter, and maybe you look at this for next year, right? There's some trades that I talk about. They just happen once a year, right? I talk about the NFL trade with gambling. I've taken that trade 2 years in a row, made money both years. And I think that you look at some of these trades like this and you think about them for the long term. How can I trade this again, right? Maybe I can't trade it this time, but I can start looking for this to kind of work in. And you can look at the charts too for this, right? Like I think I did like a deep research on SunPower. SunPower loves to have really good time between September and kind of November, like kind of going into that Q3 to Q4. And seasonality, guys, can sometimes just make you money, guys. I'll be honest.
And there's
56 rejection on the VXX. It went right back to that level, Michael. So I'm watching that level there. I think it's an important one. We keep getting to it and rejecting. It's the same on the SPY, right? Same on the SPY.
We got to get through that level, which is that CPI print low. If we can get through that zone, then I think kind of all bets are off to the upside, right? So
I'm gonna look for the scare here, kind of a wick action, then come back. All right, I'll wait for that though.
Yeah, as long as I think any time spent over these lows, and again this 2-day VWAP, I think this is bullish action, right? We're just now waiting for something to kind of propel us a little bit higher, right? Something to. And I think that would either be a break of either of these VWAPs, right? This is, if you read the book from Brian Shannon, I highly recommend the VWAP pinch, right? So you get two VWAPs that seem very important for the stock. And as they start to squeeze together, they just become a nice little flag or something to play off of where you're just
coin hourly pullback alert on coin. I like the setup, but it's just that hourly pullback look that we do, right? A stock that was looking really good in the morning now coming back there towards those early morning lows, undercut, gave you almost a double bottom on the hourly from the candle that's touching right now. We got a 189.43, 189.35, right? So it gives us an ability to know where risk is and looking to see if coin can reverse back. I like these also to look bearish on short-term time frames and then bullish on the bigger, right? And then that's another way to look at it to confirm yourself. Does it look? Would I short it on the 1 minute, but I would go long it on the 1 hour? Things like that are good questions.
And right there is, again, 2-day VWAP. So we're sitting right at that price. So just like the SPY. So that might be another kind of confirming indicator if that ends up reversing, because again, that's something I do want to watch. I do like it's like I talk about all the time, is that your strategy should come with some sort of psychological or mental theory to start with, right? When most people, they get in trouble by building systems is they just say, I'm going to wait for the MACD to cross the blah 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 and then I'm going to take a trade. Those don't work, right? You got to start with a market mechanic that makes sense. And that's why I like these undercut and rallies, because it makes sense. You've stopped out some shorts that or you've got some short sucked in and then you've got some long stopped out, and then they could kind of push from there. But so it makes sense for a trade, and that again might just be another confirming indicator. So you take that 2-day VWAP and you say, okay, that's our price. Still just got my Momo, and I still got my Momo came real close to the exit. Makes me a little worried. And I've got my Momo and Novo, and that's about it. As the SPY is pulling back a little bit, we're at that. I seen
Hood at prior resistance in the pre-market. That's another one that you had mentioned that looked good. Pulling back there. I see hourly resistance as being around 37.70. So we're right there.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So again, talk about this all the time. We all know the importance of relative strength and relative weakness. It's huge, right? Tons of studies, tons of people using it, and papers done, and all that. Question is what do you always consider relative strength, relative weakness? For me, I think a good way intraday right now is just the CPI candle. Where are we in relative to the CPI candle? So with Hood, we're still above it. So we're pulling back here, but we're still above the CPI candle. Right, we mentioned the Qs are at that lows. So Hood is doing better than the Qs, and then the SPY is doing worse. So it kind of gives you a good place to go, okay, now I know where to go hunting, right? If you were looking for some things to buy today that could potentially rally well if the market rallies, just go and start looking and saying, okay, what's above that CPI candle that I like? And then those are potential trades I think you can make. It's just showing that, again, relative strength. What are they, quote unquote, the large institutions not selling, or what are they buying the dips on the hardest? Just not the SPY right now. So, haven't looked at the heat map. That might give us a clue to why. I think it's just healthcare underperforming a little bit. Tesla again just continues to just rocket here.
Throwback look for the VIX. So if I was going long, this would be the throwback long on the VXX. So I'm looking to see if it can go back to the highs and get rejected here.
TSLA. There we go. Yeah, so Tesla's actually holding some relative strength here. XPEV was a big miss from the system this morning. It printed right in the pre-market. Something I'm going to start playing with, I think, a little bit is, that first half hour or so before the market opens, it starts to see if something is printing through. We do have a little bit of pre-market buying power, so again, might be a way to take a look at. But other than that, again, Novo, I'm in. Momo, I'm still in. And then the only thing that I'm really looking at is iRobot. The rest of these are shorts, and I'm just not interested in taking shorts right here. As I mentioned, the market just looks a little bit too extended for me. So the only thing I'm really watching, again, is this iRobot, and then just managing these two trades that I have, which overall should be, hopefully, in a profitable day in the books. So should be. Let's see. Unless they both roll over.
Spread is widening out on my VXX. That's a good sign, at least for me.
Another bounce right at that 2-day VWAP on the SPY. So holding, again, for now. Potentially showing us that there's some, algorithmic order in there to say that's where we want to get long.
Look at XLI's hourly chart. That one's interesting too. Another support just sitting there and undercutting.
Yeah.
Right. So just sit there. It's just sitting there. When it sits there, who can look at that? I'll tell you one thing. I think that's definitely more the institutional style trade. They're just like, well, I mean, we got a shot here to maybe take some risk where the stock hasn't been before, right? So
they're hunting for that liquidity. They're not buying at highs, right? They're looking for levels to get undercut, and then they're not just buying in one shot. They're looking for those levels to get undercut, and they say, okay, if the stock is under, for XLI, for example, if it's under, say, 129.50, turn on the algorithm, turn on the buy algorithm, which will buy randomly in small, hopefully undetectable prints. And if it gets above that, then turn it back off. So that's the price. And that's why, again, you see these areas become important and less single prices, because they're not buying at a single price. They're saying, if you're under this, let's turn on the algorithm, and it's just going to spit out buy orders in a way that is hopefully undetectable to our competition, the other algorithms out there, all that kind of stuff.
All right, guys, we're going to keep it going here. We're trying to take some more trades, and we do got an interview coming up, guys. So stay tuned. We'll be talking to the big beat. Find out, guys. Excited to go ahead and talk a little bit about the market. And one of the interesting aspects that we'll talk about in our interview is how AI can be helping your trade. I know Michael's a big proponent of it. He uses it on a daily basis, but I feel like so many traders are not taking the look into how it can be helping. And there's certain people that have leaned in, right? Michael, I know you're definitely one of those people that have leaned in, but there's still people like kind of like 1 foot in. No, guys, you got to be like 2 feet in. Like, I'm learning everything I can about this to try to help me. Because I can tell you that is right now, there's never been a time where your productivity could increase like it is right now.
What I'm doing over at Stats Edge Trading, I'm doing pretty much all with AI. The story I always tell is, right, my dad owned an accounting firm during the invention of computers and Excel. And when I showed him this, the kind of quote that he had is, it seemed like the same kind of revolution. He said, it's important to note that there's not less accountants because Excel exists, right? What it replaced, it didn't replace accountants. It replaced accountants that didn't know Excel, right? So if you didn't learn the new technology, you were screwed. He owned the accounting firm. So eventually it was, okay, show me, your bookkeeping skills. And then he saw the journey to, okay, don't care about that anymore. Right. Show me your Excel skills. Exactly. And then, right. And now in a couple of years from now, I could definitely see a world where it's like, can you prompt? You don't need to know all the formulas. Can you sit down in front of Copilot or whatever they're calling it with Excel? Can you prompt it correctly to get the right answer? And can you verify that answer and all that kind of stuff? Right.
Gold, guys, straight gold. All right, guys, we're gonna get that interview started at 10:30. We're there about 6 minutes away. Right now, we just got another wick action on the VXX. This is when I start to feel interested, because I told you guys, I looked at the throwback look, and I'm just looking to see if the VXX can get through the high right now, 56.36. If it rejects the high and starts getting heavy back through the trend line, that's when I want to get short, right? So we'll see what happens here. Can it get back through that level? Throwback look is just right off of the trend line look right here. So you see that that's where people probably bought. Now I want to see that it can't get back through this high, rejects it, and then goes back through that, right? So you see how it's not up in this space, right? If it gets in this space, it's a no touch for me, right? But if it can just reject that, now start to kind of catch those traders that are long on that, just start to come down. So that's what I'm looking for here.
Yeah, and that's lining up again exactly with the 2-day VWAP on the SPY, right? Struggling there again. I don't know if I'm going to trust it for a bounce the third time, but I hope it works out for you with that trade.
Gotta take some shots, right? And like I told you guys, I got to make some money today, so I use the cushion to try to take the bigger trade, right? I don't think the bigger trade's a fade today, and that's what I'm trying to take here. I'm thinking it's the reversal, but after the wash. Right. And that's what we'd see here is that those early traders, they're probably seeing their way out right now. They've been buying the dip, and it's failing them. Let's see if it starts to work. And I feel like this is how it's been. It's been a tale of stop outs, then trades start working, right? So you got to be careful, got to stay small, got to be nimble, got to be quick in this market.
Well, and yeah, it's the beauty of it is that I talk about this all the time, the basement window trade, right? You know exactly where you're wrong, right? You're leaning against the level. And anytime you're leaning against the level, right? The whole saying is that if you're going to jump out a window, might as well be the basement window. And that's kind of what you're doing in this case. You know that if that area lets go, it's time to get out. So the risk reward there gets really, really high trying to pick these zones, even if they're not super high probability trades. But again, risk reward, you can be, if your risk reward's good enough, you can be really, really low win rate and do just absolutely fantastic. So I like the trade. It's just all going to have to do with whether or not this SPY holds this 2-day VWAP that we've kind of been bouncing off over and over and over again for the last, almost an hour now.
Starter on, guys. Starter on. 500 shares short. VXX got short there, guys. I'm short at 55.96. Looking for the 56 rejection here. I did see it spread out to 56.26 there, so I put a stop there at 56.30s. But I'm looking for the quick wash here and looking to add here through this level, and then using 56 eventually as the risk here. That would be that trend line approach that failed, and now the bulls start to get washed here right around these levels. All right, into the green now with the spread, but that's not doesn't mean anything.
Look at it bouncing there, right? So we are bouncing again off that zone.
And it's four bottom actions. Four bottoming actions, right? We've been talking about that more and more. So same thing on the Qs, right? It's almost a mimic, the Qs and the SPY right now. So
yeah, the correlation will definitely be there, the Qs. But again, you can use the CPI print candle, you can use the 2-day VWAP, whatever it is. Just massive relative strength there in the Qs over the SPY. Just huge. So again, perfect, right? It's exactly what you want to see. So if we do dig in and start to push higher there, then I think you got a good trade on your hands. It feels like this could be one of those more all-day kind of bounces where it's been such a strong strong gap that we're just fading into, and it hasn't been like an aggressive fade in any way. It's just been kind of meandering down slowly as opposed to a really big push. So if we can hold that 2-day VWAP again, that's going to be the tell. Just means there was some amount of buy program that was happening there.
Definitely spread is pretty wide here for the VXX. Sometimes I get it as tight as like a penny or maybe 5 cents on max. You can tell it's spread out. It's about 20 to 30 cents at some points here. So keep your eyes on the spreads out there, guys. Eldon, how we doing out there, man? What's going on? How we doing?
Oh yeah, the swing, doing swings. You got to give us your swing update.
Yeah, how's the swings looking? Eldon is he's been in multiple streams that I have been, but I just love the approach he takes, right? I always love when I see true like kind of learner mentality in the chat, because the truth is, guys, when you first start and when you're trying to get this right, it's just about learning a lot, learning from your mistakes where most traders cannot.
Exactly. Yeah, it's been a hard one, so I'll be interested. It's been a hard one to swing trade. Now again, I told everyone I was going deep on my swings yesterday, just because I'm an algorithmic, I'm a quant trader, so they were all screaming that I should do it, but it wasn't easy. Had to kind of hold my nose there to buy some.
Yeah. And that's what I've noticed. It's hard to buy in those moments unless you had one that was already on your eyes, right? Like I feel like AVGO was one of those more like you had the mentality already, right? And so AVGO is one that I kind of like. I think that one's a good one, because there's certain times where you'll see a stock make a move and you're like, man, can't catch it here. But if it could just come back, right? If it could just give me the opportunity to come make a little round trip. All right, guys, in a second, I'm just going to add and go for the win here in the VXX, but I got to go ahead and leave a stop because we're going to get into an interview in just a second. So guys, like always, smash the like. We'll get to the action here in just a second. Let's see what happens. I mean, this is this is going to be a big shot right here. I'm not going big either because I feel like this is one of those trades where it needs to work for me first. And then I can worry about if I want to add or not, or just see the kind of the dump on the VIX. Don't need to be big.
You know, not to jazz up the trade too much. Again, I've got my one trade. I forgot Momo did trigger out. So I got triggered out of that trade. Again, just the green arrow, VWAP to VWAP kind of play. So I got triggered out there. So the only trade I got going right now is Novo, just not doing anything. And again, that could be the case all day. I got to stop the low of the day. I've got to target a little bit higher for the target. And then the iRobot. I don't have this, but I'm watching this. So I just set an alert. Again, something very easy to do. RBT, right? So I don't even need to watch it now, right? You can just go in trading view. I want to alert on a break through VWAP and then just
out the XX
move. So
spread got me there, went up there to the 30s. I got out there, took a $182 loss there, still up 266, trying to work it. Right now, I'm going to let the VIX do its thing. We'll see what happens, guys. Eldon giving us a nice little update. We'll take a look at that, but let's go ahead. Let's get into our interview time, guys. Like always, smash the like. I always appreciate bringing on different conversations that we can learn, like always, guys. So let's go ahead. Let's bring on the man himself, Big B, guys. I want to talk about this, and it's important with the AI conversation. My man, Steven, been working very hard on an area we'll talk about today. So let's bring him on. Let's talk about it. How we doing, Steven? What's going on?
How are you guys, man? That's you guys have been crushing it. I've been watching you, and well done there. I love it.
Yeah, you know, one of the things is like always, the markets are back and forth, and I think that's what a lot of the day traders forget. And you have to stay up with everything, especially in the day trading game, right? Yeah. When we're in kind of more in that investor hat or swing traders hat, we can kind of hang out a little bit more and kind of be more systematic. But that's the truth. The day trading game, that's that back and forth action. And we're seeing it clearly on a day like today with CPI coming in just a hair light, right? How did you react when you first saw that CPI print?
Yeah, I mean, with two things happened today, right? The Fed has been screaming about they need the inflation rate to come down. They want to see CPI print. They've been talking about JOLT forever. That's Janet Yellen's favorite numbers. And when those numbers started to come in the way that they like, that really made people feel like, hey, okay, we're going to get this Fed maybe getting cut, maybe a quarter point. You know, if you look at it for the next month, the answer is absolutely 0%, right?
Yeah.
You ask the actual trader. But this is putting the Fed on the spot, because I've said this for a while, that they're way behind the 8 ball. To me, the ECB has been behind the 8 ball, the European, and you saw Christine Lagarde now finally saying, well, we've got some headwinds now, right? And so we don't want to be the country that says we're behind the 8 ball, right? So we want to make sure that we're ahead of that. And so now these prints are actually saying, okay, guess what? Jobs, unemployment, JOLTS, CPI print, they're all going the direction that says you got to start cutting. And one of the things that we do, you know, that our biggest, well, I guess now it's $74 trillion worth, is housing, right? That's our biggest asset class in the United States. And because of that, we know that there's been a downturn. So, and we know we have a president that just loves real estate. So you're going to see those things. And I think you saw it 2 days ago when the market fell down on tweets of tariffs. I went out and bought, I shorted the VIX. I bought puts on the VIX. I went out and bought a Tesla heavy when Tesla I sold this morning at this nice jump here. I'm still long NVIDIA. The theses and the ideas of the markets and the technology has not changed. The whole thesis around and theme around AI hasn't changed. So until that changes, I'm not going to go bearish on this. I'm not scared.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's some things that you need to be thinking about, right? And the tariffs conversation is all like kind of seeing what was going to happen, right? Because there's this back and forth action. Is it 25? Is it 15? Is it 10? Right. So like I've mentioned, it's just a bunch of modeling, trying to guess on where we're going versus actual quantifiable data that's coming from the statistics, right? And when we look at inflation, all that scare that was, oh no, but inflation, that slight spike on the recent one before this one got some people really on the nerves. But this one just tells us more and more how, yeah, we could get possibly some inflation. But like I mentioned, for tariff inflation to show up, it's going to take a long time down the line. Yeah. It could be by like July, August time, by the time we see something of that start to show up in the numbers, the lag effect, right? And I think that's something to really be thinking about. Like you mentioned, I think more it's the pressure on the big bad wolf, Jerome Powell, that we got to be watching to see what happens there. And I mentioned is good news, bad news in this case, that kind of mentality, right? And that's the hardest time, I think. And that's why the uncertainty in the market is so high right now, because some people are saying, well, if inflation goes higher, is that a good thing necessarily? Because, you know, you got the stagflation talk and all that conversation, right?
Hey, look, I remember when stagflation, I mean, I talked about stagflation 4 months ago and I was getting beat up on it. Now it's talking about all of it. Look, I don't think stagflation is going to happen, right? Because I think inflation is now coming down. It was going up. I mean, it's very simple. I call it channel checks, right? Go to the grocery store, eggs went through the roof, right? Price of milk's going through the roof. It's orange juice. Oh my goodness, right? I called it the breakfast trade for a while, you know, back in the late 90s when I used to trade on the floors. Look, I will tell you right now that those things are coming down. People aren't feeling good right now, but I don't really care, right? I mean, I care about they're not feeling, but I'm looking at the future. The markets are about the future. They're not about what's happening right now, and it's the mispricing of pricing. And I think, Michael, you're if anybody, the CMT guy himself, right? You know, you look at, that's exactly what it's about, right? That's why we trade the markets, because the markets aren't the right price. If they're the right price, you wouldn't buy or sell. Right. So right now, if you're looking at the markets, to me, I think that, I love this chart coming up, the 10-year. And I would tell you, put the 10-year over the 2 and look at backwardation going on right now. Right. So for me right now, I think you're right. Inflation's coming down. I do think that the Fed has got their fingers in it. They're ready to go. But I will say there is something, and Michael's probably going to give me a little headache over it. But I've told people lately, and I have been trading on charts since graph paper and pen. That's how old I am, right? But stop pearl clutching your charts, right? There's more to the markets than charting right now. I know there it is. Look, you know, Tyler Wood's different, and I love charting and I love the CMT, but it's not always about charts. And I always say this, and it's unintended.
Definitely.
News trumps charts, right?
Yes.
Always. Every time, right? So if news comes out, your charts or literally throw them out the door until the news abates, right? But we have to have something to show us where things are and where things are going. But the market, a lot of people don't, it's hard to explain to a lot of people, but where there's a seller, there's a buyer. All right. It's a mechanical machine, right? So we've got to find those buyers and we've got to find those sellers, and where's the liquidity? And I think we found that capitulation a couple of days ago when we just flushed, right? And that's when I said, okay, the chart is telling me now the 200, the 50-day, we're below all of those things. Now we're out of whack, right? It's the mispricing of pricing. So we went back in, I bought, and of course today I started peeling all of that went off, right? And I want to see the mispricing of pricing again.
So I'm with you, like fully. Like I bought a bunch of stuff yesterday. You know, I did a tweet about it that my hand was sore from hitting the buy button. But so for me, right, and for your own trading as well, is what are you looking for that would just completely kind of wipe that this is a short-term bottom out of the water? Is it just we make a new low? Are you looking for some rhetoric from the Fed, or what is it that says okay? Because again, I'm with you. So like most people should do, and kind of a lesson for the audience is, second you're in a trade, you should always be looking for, okay, what evidence is there that I'm potentially wrong, and that's going to get me out of the trade. So what are you looking for to say, okay?
That's exactly right. I mean, as you know me, Mitch and Michael, that I'm a thesis trader. I think more of like the overarching themes, right? 2 days ago, I was on Wolf Financial during the show, and I went, I'm pounding the table, and I haven't done that in 2 years. I'm buying. And it was like everybody's freaked out. Oh, no, that's not the best time to buy. You're trying to catch a knife, blah, blah, blah. You're right. And I did catch the knife, right? Why? Because that's where the capitulation was. That's where the volatility was. That's where the volume was. And that's where the buyers were saying, okay, this is too far. Now, for me, I have to think about that. We've got to see Trump lay off the toilet tweets, right? You got to stop, man. You got to start talking about normal common sense stuff, right? Yeah. But if you get past all of that, and I think he will, I think he's trying to I guess, sledgehammer the market a little bit. Yeah. But I will say this much. Nothing has changed. there's the three things that I think that always gets us out of these problems is tech. The first thing I saw for the first time, and guys, I'm not a big Apple fan, but Apple says, look, we're going to change our whole OS up. It's coming OS. That's technology. Okay, we're going to increase our AI spend. So Apple said, okay, you know what? I'm not that good at Apple Intelligence, so I'm going to go with Gemini. And they did, right? They went to Google and they're going to partner and things. Great. Okay. Now, NVIDIA, go to the store and try to buy an NVIDIA chipset. Go try to buy the RTX 5070, right? The 5090. You can't do it, right? It's pulling teeth. Go to look at Intel. Intel are already they have the distribution. So you're looking at Taiwan Semi thinking about buying them. If you see rates coming down, boom, right? They're going to have money to buy them. So these are the kind of things that I'm looking at. The third theme I think here for me is when I'm seeing the retail. The retailers are the zero DTEs, the gambling side of the whole market has got to slow down a bit, right? We saw $50 billion worth of zero DTEs go through 2 days ago. That is absolutely ludicrous. That is gambling. And everybody knows me. The market is not gambling. It is the greatest wealth creator in history. There's nothing on the planet at any time in history to make greater wealth than the stock market and the options market. But when we start to put it, creating a casino, that bothers me, right? So that's got to slow down a little bit. We got to get back to basics. That's what I've been saying. You got to get back to basics. And the basics are saying Google at a 19 PE,
exactly.
Apple at 22 or something. That's out of whack, right? That's not a tech company, and they are tech companies, right?
Yeah.
So that's the three things I think that we need to see in order to feel a lot better. But I'm not scared right now. I love, if you love Bitcoin at 100,000, you sure as hell should love Bitcoin at 76,000, right?
Exactly. No, I think it's what you need to see, and I think what you said it best is I feel like sometimes the market tries to act too logically, right? Instead of looking into where the logic makes sense. I know that sounds weird, but it's the truth, right? So like you mentioned, those knives, right? Everything in the books, if I turn to the books, is going to tell me, no, don't look at it. But the truth is, I've seen it in the last 5-10 years. Those V bottoms seem to work.
That's
and
right.
It's not a big old rounding bottom, let everybody in kind of bottom. No, it's, oh, you thought this was not the time. And the market says, whoop, right back up.
The market can be more irrational than our accounts can handle it. I mean, I think Michael and I have a dear friend, Brian Shannon. He'll tell you anchored VWAP, right? He'll tell you exactly right where it should be, right? You know where the highs are, you know the lows are, and right there's where it should go bounce back to you, right? And I like that side of it. Let's get to AI, man. Let's talk about my favorite.
Let's do it. Of course, you got Quasar Market. Tell us first a little bit about that, and then, of course, tell us how you use yourself AI in your trading. I think this is very important because, like I mentioned to everyone out there, if you're not leaning in, you're doing something wrong here.
That's right. Yeah. And, I've been talking about AI for over 15 years now. So to me to see everybody talking about AI now, it's kind of like, huh? It's great. Okay, everybody's an AI master. Look, I'll tell you a couple things. So you asked about Quasar Market. That's right. And you know money, Mitch, you and I worked at been singing together with Senior VP there. Yeah. And I'll tell you, look, I am very passionate about distributed technologies when it comes to the markets, right? I think that sometimes I would say leveling the playing field, right? Why should the big boys have all of the data, all of the news? I don't think that's right. I think we should that should be distributed to everybody, right? And decentralize the data. So I also worked at Money.net, as you know, Senior VP and Chief Strategy Officer. And I thought about a year and a half ago, you know what? I've done it for everybody else. It's time to do it for myself and do it on a much bigger scale and worldwide. And there's a lot of things I needed to do. I needed to raise money, and I needed to have developers. And I've got over 1,000 developers through Kiwi Tech and WebMob. Yeah, thank you. And you know what? In a year we did it. We built the whole system out. And what to me that I really, really like is that it's not just about the stock market. I learned when I worked at the White House, the State Department, I learned that the whole world matters, right? Meaning that if something happens in Japan, it's going to affect the trader in Arizona, right? And so I wanted to create something that has sports, news, weather, and do it in a way that it was on anything with your iPhone, your cell phone, your mobile app, your iPad, your Oculus, your Apple Vision Pro, which it all works great. You can touch screens and move things around. But then to also take all of this data, all the government data, all of the stocks, quotes, everything, charts, and shove it into AIs and do it in a way that was compliant and do it in a way that gave you a much better answer to a question you didn't even know to ask. And I can give you a good example. I can share my screen here in a second. And we did that too as well. We won 4 awards, 2 at Benzinga, I believe, and 2 at Finance Feeds International, already on the AI, and speak at WEF, World Economic Forum, and United Nations already about it. And we've won, and I love it, right? But what I wanted to do was empower the user to be able to find nuggets that they didn't know that was there, that, oh, wow, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs knew about it, but you did it, right? Yeah. I want to give the power back to the people. So we did that and do it in a way that kept all of this very, very cheap, as financially as frugal as I possibly could be. And we did that too, around $15-20 a month. So that's awesome. Yeah, and do it in a way that's speedy, and do it on brand new React and new Python versions. And I love the part here, but you talked about it earlier, algo trading through AI. We built that too as well, where it's low code, no code, so that a user can talk to the machine and the machine will build you out an algo without even having to know any kind of code as well.
Now you're talking my language right there.
Yeah, that's what it's about. And you mentioned thesis all the time, thesis trading, right? Things like this can definitely help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just want to kind of thank you and the other AI developers too, because like I mentioned, I'm a systematic trader. It's something that it's like that thing that I always wanted to get into, right? I've been trading for 20 years and I'm like, I could systematize a lot of what I do, but I'm not a coder, right? I went to school for finance. I got my CMT, all this stuff. So I really like what you talked about, that just brings everything. Like, I could not do what I do now if it wasn't for just going to different AIs and saying, this is what I want. I use this back tester called Real Test. I want you to build it, figure it all out and then build it for me. So I love that. And for other traders and for people looking at the market, this is the kind of stuff you have to look at.
So, Michael, what if I could do it in a way that's also bringing in the abstract ideas too? So you have an idea, Google Trends or sports or things of that nature, and also shove that into your algorithm that you can't do anything else. We built that too because we have all the data. If I can share my screen,
and go ahead, Steven. Go ahead and bring it up. I'll bring it up in just a second. But I can tell you, I do all that and I just do it manually. So this will definitely help, right? I mean, it's just the truth, right? I look at Google Trends all the time. So I'm looking at that because that's the way that I feel retail still has an advantage. You if you want an advantage, you got to go looking in all the information we have available to us.
Right.
The hard part is looking in deciphering through the noise. And that's exactly what this is essentially for. It's trying to help us decipher between the noise and what could actually help us in many different ways.
Hallucinates. So what if I could take the AI and attach them to the actual database, Fred and Edgar, and not let the AIs get outside of it? And I think a lot of problems with a lot of AI companies is that they're just using ChatGPT and they're just trying to get a chart. And I didn't want just that. I wanted to create a complete thesis, theming, give you every data point and then explain to you what it is that you're actually seeing too. So we did all of that. And if you can pull it up here, I think I'm sharing my.
I got you right now. Just give me 1 second here. StreamYard made some adjustments that makes it a little harder, but here we go.
All right, you'll see here that I've made a couple posts and I'll pull them all up as a time. But my idea here was, people talk about from the M2 side, the money supply, right? So I didn't want to just know money supply and how it's affecting it, but I've said, look, how does money supply, the unemployment rate, CPI, the Fed fund rate, and inflation rate over the last 70 years, how has it affected the markets? Well, the three of us here, we understand this chart probably better than anybody, right? But I wanted to be able to give the thing turned around and actually give you the answer. And the answer to this was, well, we're seeing the whole thing again, right? So in the 80s, we saw high inflation, we saw high unemployment. And when those things turned around, the markets went up in the 80s, late 80s. So we needed to see a turnaround, and we're seeing that again, right? Inflation coming down. We're seeing money supply still going out there. Unemployment rate slipping up just a little bit. And we're seeing the Fed fund rate will probably come down again. So guess what? That's a thesis and a theme of why the market's going to go back up. It's underpinning it. Michael asked me that earlier, right? These are the kind of insights that I want to see. Earlier, I did one too, again, about inflation and talking about unemployment, and then the 10 and 2s. I think you showed the 10 year earlier. I love that, right? We're seeing the exact same thing. When we see these numbers come through, the inflation rate pops through, the unemployment rate, which we're about to see it again. Guess what happens? This is between 80s and 90s. Guess what happened at that time? The markets went straight up. Right. So we're going to see that again. And the third thing that I think, Mitch, you know, I've been talking about this for many, many years, is the wealth transfer. I call it the greatest wealth transfer in history. But that's great. But I actually wanted to understand that, right? When is it going to physically happen? I've been talking about it. Did not know. So I put in asset class breakdown. I wanted to put the baby boomer mortality rates into the system and find that wealth transfer. And we found out, and I can tell you the answer to the question now. It's 2037, right? Now I can buy long dated puts and calls on real estate and retirement accounts and cash and understand that, right? So that's the kind of stuff, and to be able to explain and exactly how much money, where the money is going to flow to, and when it's going to flow to it. So those are the kind of AI things.
Just to pause you there on that tweet too. What's funny is that just to show the proliferation of AI, the first comment there is adding Grok to break down the chart for you. So you use AI to build it. A user looks at it and maybe just doesn't quite understand it, and he's using AI to interpret it. So again, it just shows that, again, the power of these.
And Michael, do you know how long when I did these things in the past? It would take me a day. When I do shows with Benzinga or shows, it would take me a day to have to go through all this. I did this in 7 minutes. Right?
Wow.
Coming up with the idea and showing how to create the charts and building it out. The machine did it in a few minutes, but to give everything, to pull up all the data and put it into it, I had to do that. But now I've actually made it easier. If you guys are okay with it, I'll show you Quasar Markets.
Sure.
And I'll show you. You can see here we built this thing so you can watch TV on it. We can watch stock twits, financials, weather data, Twitter news. All the things you can imagine.
I think you're gonna have Elon call you and say you stole an idea, bro.
I was ahead of the game before him.
Let him know. Let him know, Steven. Let him know. The Everything app. Oops. I think it's already here, guys.
Yeah, I wanted to show our AI that we won so many awards on it, and I know that my screens are very big, so I will go ahead. You can see how fast the machine is, by the way. But on the left hand side, you can see these are the questions that I've been asking, right? And over here, the right hand questions are what others in our teams have been asking, right? But we wanted to do it in a way that I could ask. Whether we can ask our own AI, which is Quasar Markets AI, which has about 16 AIs into it, by the way. It's not just, adding one AI into it. And then we also want to do it in a way that you could actually ask the databases, right? Yeah. So, hey, I just want to ask NASDAQ data. I want to know a fundamental question. I'm going to ask about Microsoft's XYZ, right? And I also wanted to know what others were asking, and I wanted to know what the most asked questions. So I already knew where to start the AI process, right? So if I ask what are the latest consumer confidence numbers, that the machine will actually start to give me those answers, right? And then tell me where they came from. And then, Michael, you'll love this, but to also cover compliance, to be able to tell me where the data came from and also timestamp it too as well. Great. So
yeah, because I think that's something that's huge with AI. You want to see where you got it from, because you're right. Sometimes there can be some weird hallucination or something. So it's always good to have that source. So especially sometimes the AI does something that looks a little fishy. You want to be able to go in and look at it quickly. Even if it's right, then you're like, okay, at least I've done my due diligence and I know it's kind of right.
Absolutely. And I didn't want to just think like a Google search or on Google search on steroids. I wanted to build something that gave me contextual, gave me relevant facts around it, things I didn't even know. And as it's answering the questions to me, right, it's telling me things I didn't even know to ask about the CPI. Let's go say, okay, Steve, you asked a good question, but here's the other questions that you should be asking, right? And there's a timestamp, and it's got large language modeling in it too, so I can talk to it and all that. And then I can also prediction and generative AI as well. So I wanted something that had built all of that into one, not one AI, but to build everything, right? To build a SaaS and to build it in the system. So I'm going to stop my sharing now, Mitch.
Cool. Well, I'll tell you one thing. I'm going on the VIX short here, and we're going to go ahead and take a look and seeing how we can use AI more often. I think this is really exactly what it's all about, guys. I hope you guys appreciate us going through this, because I know how it can be. The first thing when you see new technology, it can be like, is this going to break humans, right? Is this going to break the jobs and things like that? No, there's just new ways of doing things, guys. It's like when we didn't have computers and then we got computers, right? People were yelling in the streets, but no, you're going to get cancer in those rooms. Well, now I have like how many screens and how many computers around me, right? I mean, come on, guys. And this is the important thing, guys. You have to lean into technology. You have to be thinking like Steven mentioned here, and you guys hear me mention it all the time. Creating those thesis, right? You hear Michael say it all the time, like kind of scientific method style of trading, right?
Yes.
Because that can be something that we can look back and build on, right? Even if we make mistakes, we can learn from it. And this is exactly what these types of tools are able to help you. So Steven, thanks for bringing it on today, guys. The big beat, bringing the beat on here for you guys today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And definitely I'll throw up the link here to both your Twitter and of course Quasar Market, so you guys can check it out for yourself. And keep following on Steven, because he puts up a lot of this information right there on Twitter for you guys to kind of take it in. And I appreciate this as being someone that tries to, of course, follow really high quality posting and profiles on Twitter. Check him out, guys. Thank you for coming on today. And I know Michael, his head's spinning over here. He's ready to get working, man.
I'm gonna play. That's for sure.
Well, I'd love to have you both on my shows as well at Quasar Markets Live.
Yeah.
But guys, listen, Mitch, I've known you a long time. Really appreciate your friendship, and Michael too as well. And look, look what we do. And I say this all the time. Like, there's so many people that are on YouTube and streaming and all that. But that doesn't make you a knowledgeable person. I mean, you have the background, as I call it, the pedigree, right, to help people. And I really appreciate what you're doing, because I believe that this is the way, as they say in The Mandalorian. This is the way, right? Because look, there's so many people out there that are just giving bad information, and I appreciate the way that you guys do it, because it's the real deal. So
yeah,
thank you.
That's what it's about, man. Have a good one, Steve. We'll bring you back on, and like always, guys, check him out. Big beat, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
All right, that was a good conversation, and I threw up the links there, guys. Check it out, guys. And like I said, lean into AI in any way you can, guys. And there's a reason why the products are being built, and I think that products like this are things that definitely make sense. And to tell you the truth, guys, I've been following this for a while, and it's been really a long time developed. I appreciate that too. It's not something that was just like, bundled up and thrown at you guys really quickly. I think that's an important thing to see, guys. So let's take a look into the markets. Let's see what's going on here. I took a shot there. I'm definitely down a little bit there on that position on the VXX, looking to see if we can reject the high here, break. If we keep going in this direction, it's going to be tough to hold on. But definitely the market's just struggling to hold here. I finally saw a rejection on kind of the shorter time frames, went after it here. Still no bounce, man. No bounce, at least at holding.
Yeah, still bleeding. Oh, that's not, I don't want to be there. I want to be here. So this line is kind of what we drew again in the morning. We draw all these right off the open, and that's just the post-market low. That was the low of yesterday before this kind of bounce happened. So this is another very important area that we got to keep an eye on, see if we can end up holding through there. It doesn't look quite like it. Below that, low a day, right? So below the low of yesterday, right? All the way down here, we get below that, and that's 552. Again, I am not worried yet. I'm still right. I bought a bunch of stuff yesterday. We did turn red on the day, but I'm still okay with that. But I will be certainly less okay if we lose the low of yesterday, right? In a perfect world, we turn here, rally for the rest of the day, close somewhere near green or somewhere near highs, just because that would be what we talk about all the time. They sucked in a bunch of shorts, they took out a bunch of longs, and then took a move from there. So yeah, it's one of those things where we're selling, but we have to zoom out, right? It's always important to zoom out and say, okay, yeah, it's been a pretty sustained sell off the open, but have that level and say, okay, as long as we're holding the lows of yesterday, for me, I'm still interested in from the long side. If those things break, then of course it's all over, right? Got to go then.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens in the afternoon. This is why I always say you got to be watching, and I feel like the morning traders definitely got the wash, and so they're out the doors. We'll see if for some reason the lunch traders come in and the lunch algos turn things around. One thing that I know is that TSM up still for the day. So if there's one stock that it catches my eye just because of the strength that's in there, TSM still not looking too bad there. AMD not through the low of that CPI print. It did do a little wick there. So I'm looking for things like that Michael said, right? Look for those CPI lows, see how they're doing, how they're building off of that, right? And TSM, definitely one of those that I see also the strength there. SMH made it back there, but it still hasn't broken that 830 number there also. So another name to maybe keep an eye on for the afternoon action. I hope you guys enjoyed it, guys. Yeah. It wasn't a bad day today, guys. Really good conversation there with Steven, and definitely check it out, guys. But we're going to keep pushing, right? And like I always say, it's really important to stay with themes and things that you're looking for to see develop in these situations. Because if you have the shopping list late, well, the shopping list doesn't help you, right? So we'll see what happens and what we can do. Can we get continued action there? It's a battle out there, guys. Be safe out there. Like always, focus on what? Focus on consistency in a time like this where there's a lot of uncertainty, and finding ways to make early cash can definitely give you a nice little cushion to bet and see what happens, right? We'll see what happens today, guys. I'll be keep battling on the day, guys. You guys can always keep up with me at MoneyMitchTP and Michael Noss on Twitter. If you guys don't have Michael, I don't know what you're waiting for, because definitely you're missing out there, guys. But definitely check it out, guys. We have a great show like always. We're going to keep battling. We'll be back tomorrow. And I'll be looking to have someone on that I was trying to have a couple of weeks ago. I'm trying to get Dennis Dick on, of course, CFA. What I love about Dennis is that he's literally like a pro for me in pre and after markets. Yeah. That's a style of trading that a lot of traders, I think, could learn from, right? Is not so necessarily in the open markets when you're dealing with a lot. He has a great ability of making money in the after hours, especially, which I want to ask more questions on. So if you guys have questions about this pre-market, after hour, make sure you're ready tomorrow and come in with questions ready to go. I'll be looking for some in the chat. And of course, we'll keep pushing forward. Thank you, Michael. Thank you all for tuning in today. It's TTP Live, and we'll keep battling in this market. It ain't easy. I'll tell you that much. Ain't easy at all.
Yeah.
See you guys back tomorrow.